In the bedrooms of the palace, one can still smell the smell of kohana. In the empty corridor, you can hear the sounds that are echoing against the walls. The young man unconsciously walks to the princess's bedroom. The valleys were dry, and the dry lips were painfully squeezed. This denunciation was foiled by my boasting. The young man appeared to be in a special state. Do you remember the smell of hair? Why are you moving? Eunuch shuffled nervously, and after a short pause, she confirmed. What do you care about? It seemed to me that you knew me by smell. Vaughn gracefully turned around and added with a smile. Now you will be my slave. Tisha, I'm fit. Their eyebrows rose, and their wide eyes were wide-eyed. With a sharp roar, she turned to the window and said, This is a mercy. I was wondering if you understand that this is just an acceptable mystery and a spicy secret that only the two of us know. The temnitsa make our life more enjoyable. Rong? Ladies, I take good care of the prisons. I am the greatest saver in the world, I swear to you. I am ready to do anything for you. I agree with all your instructions, my dear. Come what may. Give me your respect. I would like to respect you. I am a great companion and a faithful friend. I can be for you forever. A slave. A servant. I will give my life for you. She looked tensely at the window and hummed. Tell me, why don't people try to fly? I would like to turn into a swallow and fly far, far away. You won't find anyone in this place, on a high rocky mountain. It would be so wonderful. Allez, it's a pity. I'm a person, not a bird. Never again will the day of our lives coincide with our possibilities. Do you know what I mean? Ladies, you don't understand. I will be faithful to you until the end of my days. I can't live without you anymore. Vona abruptly clasped her hands and began rubbing them nervously. Zalish me. Go away and don't look back again. I don't want a hint of your words, because you don't hear mine. I hope you will do your best to preserve the secrets. A crowd of Swedish crocs walked along the corridor, after which absolute silence fell in the palace. What is the smell of kohanya? You will remember them all your life. You will lose your heart forever, like a loss, like a defeat. Once an hour has passed, simple words will be forgotten. Do you remember the smell of hair? Tu shi snang. It seems to give strength, but it takes away energy. All world balance. In this ore, there is hair like the half-light of the bright sky. More than a dozen hearts have burned in New Year. Under the half-wandering gaze of his eyes, the important warrior felt like an otherwise innocent child. There is universal balance. Power takes away energy. The kingdom of Bridgant was distinguished by its beautiful architecture. The pointed spires reinforced its elegance and military character. Several eyewitnesses compared it to heaven on earth. The pretty girl was decorated with an earring. The precious stone moved playfully under the light skin of the skin. In the ore, my hair was already half burnt, my shoulders were burnt. Vaughn playfully croaked, expressing the non-turbulence in her gestures. My whole image says, I am number one. The silence is cut by the knocking of blood. The marble surface clattered against the skin impact of my legs. For a long time, the cloth rustled quietly and stretched right up to the fabric, so the girl needed to touch it with her hands. The sounds were short and sounded evenly like the sound of a metronome. Damn, go away! Who saw them? This is simply unbearable. I want it to be a great workout for my legs, she thought. A little more, 1 more, 2, 3 more. Axel, and that's it. Nothing terrible. I'm done. Why should the stench be so surprised at me? In the eyes of the servants, there was undisguised contempt. It seemed like everything froze completely. Look tensely at the pricking heads. Good afternoon, sir. A quiet, unsinging voice sounded. Are you not in your chambers? The servant nervously shifted from foot to foot and tried to stop all her gestures. A laugh came from her accusation. You didn't have mercy, but I didn't. There is no need to wag until I need nothing. Take care of your rights. She lifted her chin a little and chuckled noisily through her nose. She walked past them in a Shvidka way. When noon arrives in the kingdom, a redneck landscape emerges from the tops of its towers. This is a particularly hot period of the day. In the afternoon, the first beauty of the kingdom loves to be admired by its beauty. Many of these spirits tried to gain the respect of their hearts, but also their playful character, always giving them unpleasant surprises. Trendy body shapes will always shine with precious stones. Q beauty is impossible to buy. The prickly tongue and hostile mind are especially dangerous for weak victims. It's all over. Verbal duel. But in a duel, there are always victories and victories. Elegant and graceful in the beginning. These relishes, like Matevo, become an element of current fashion. Cloths, clothes, accessories, everything sticks out and the body becomes straight. Kaskava Or is a beast. Is it really a mystery? He said that she was damned. Vaughn is a succubus. The creaking of doors caused everyone present to turn around and focus their gaze directly on them. Everyone was quiet, and there was silence in the room. The knocking of the crock approached, and she appeared at the door. I ask you to show respect to everyone present. Hello, elegant and imperfect Princess Reveline. There was a turbulence right now. It seemed that this was not the same Princess Reveline as before. Vona descended completely and greeted everyone present with a slight nod of her head. The situation was like a picture of the artist at such an hour when he hesitated and everything was completely overtaken. Panuvala is dead silent. Out of touch, they whispered quietly, covering their mouths with their hands. Otherwise, they would try to stream the words out to themselves. I felt a rush of laughter, followed by a cough, and then I wanted to laugh again. Everything came to life. They felt pink and more eyes opened up to see the princess. I hate you all. It sounded in her head. Heartless, stubborn snobs. Are you wondering what's best for me? Why did I want to visit you? I think I'm stupid. Okay, calm down. You don't want to behave like that. Marvel at her. Why did you come here? I forgot what is wrong with her here. She doesn't hurt anyone anymore with her wickedness. The girls shouldn't be so surprised at her. She's a princess after all. If I were a princess, I wouldn't do that to myself. Soram, that's it. Quiet, girls. She can smell us. I urge you to calm down. All is well. Reveline, calm down. There is no need to guess the past. It can't be turned around. Before, they had a completely different look. But now, I smell the stink of their bestiality. Unreasonable. Heartless. Shut up. It's not your place to judge them. Why is it so stuffy here? Our valleys were sleepy, and my head was confused. Why is it so stuffy here? My throat is completely dry. Am I sick? Tiredness has not yet begun to appear in everyone's eyes. What a shame. Vona licked her lips, having previously used this method to combat dry mouth. Her body tensed, and she walked nervously towards the door. No one can tag me. I'm a little gray bear. I hope you will have fun. Golovny, don't show respect to me. Everything is fine. I don't need any further help. I will quietly walk towards you. Her head became confused, and the princess bowed a little to her side. Cooling stone. What's wrong with it? It doesn't help me at all. Vaughn squeezed her thighs harder, and the pain at her temples began to throb. Her head became confused, and the princess bowed again, but this time a little more strongly. It's starting to boil inside me. Oh my God, I'm on fire! For a few seconds, her body was covered in beads of sweat. The pulsation at the temples increased, the hands began to tremble, and often the breath choked the princess. What's wrong with me? I'm going to die now. No, we can't do anything. She wanted to stretch herself until she was naked. Oh no, Bastion, not at all. Don't look at me. Everything is fine with me. Don't go out. Come before me. What is it, timid? I want to flow in, but it seems to me that I'll immediately kill another 10 crumbs or land. Having gathered all her strength into a fist, she left and went to the king's attention. I honor you, your majesty. You look especially great today. Monster ball. A lot of great people gathered to comfort us with their presence. You don't respect me that much? She nervously raised the strands of her oar hair and laughed tensely. The king took them by the hands. The stench was loud. Reveline, how bad you feel for yourself. Come to the end. I know your stubborn character, and therefore I urge you to accept my proposition. You were amazed at her, but the look in her eyes was not clear. Your Majesty, you don't need to flaunt yourself like that. There might be a woman after my tending image. It seems that it doesn't suit me, and I look sick, so I may be deprived of one of the scenes of my performance. If you wish, I can give you a few lessons in acting. I felt a possessive, cold voice. Does the princess feel bad about herself? In ancient times, such vibrations were punishable by punishment. Are you not pretending, sir? Vaughn looked at the princess ferociously and chuckled. Your illness doesn't make you sleepy. Qi wrong? The voltage was growing. The wind seemed to be saturated with ions, and at any moment, an electric discharge might break out. The dry look of Queen Family had already cut the girl completely apart. Second, 2, 3. Tisha, are you going to hang on my food, and will you continue to chew this gluttonless little cow? The heat did not rise, but now her respect was chained to the queen. What is her news? Damn the old wardrobe. You're wondering if I don't remember what I wasted? The time will come, and you and I will talk differently. Vaughn opened her mouth to say something, but the words got stuck in her chest and she mumbled again. It's a pity that it's too late to change, so I won't bother with your tricks. You are already grown up and I am not your mother's friend, but you can ask me for help in the future. Do you know? It is clear that no one knows what is going on with you and what the main problem is. You are my problem. I hate you. Why can't I say this out loud? Calm down. Guess your mother's words. Daughter, don't mix rudeness with rudeness. You won't improve anything. Be more powerful. Be strong. Vaughn was still humming and looked slightly ruined. They didn't say a word. Before we speak, today's ball is in honor of Duke Fitzurk. We are in a newfound state. I hope you don't miss the welcome. The princess's hand clenched convulsively. The queen lived on. I appreciate the price for you, I feel it. Are you still in tune with this whole thing? Qi wrong? We can't booty. Why now? She saw how her heart fluttered out of her chest. In the coats of their eyes, they began to cut, and they began to murmur. It stinks. Killers of my mother. Vaughn convulsively clenched her fist and spoke quietly. This is the ball for my honor? It's wonderful. I'm glad to see guests. Finally, I felt your voice and the words I wanted almost. Have a nice evening. The queen laughed evilly and walked straight to the reception hall. The skin sounds with a resounding echo of pounding sounds at Reva's temples. Do you still blame Kvitzurk for your mother's death? The food sounded like a vibration, like a shot of uneasiness that sounded nearby. Vaughn shuddered, looking unsedated. No, lady, everything is fine. How did she turn back so quickly? She thought. Not a day goes by without you telling me about this. How can one live in this cruel world without violence? Sometimes it seems that around me there is no one in this world, and all the superfluous people are just an illusion. He twisted his whole body again. The blows in his temples began to grow. Everything was caught up. Everyone was amazed at her. That silent, soulless look is mute among those who visit. Is it a dream? Why is everything coming true? She thought. Girl, can you hear me? Today you are surprisingly movable. Is it possible for you to be more honest? With all the force of wiping her palms, she didn't realize how numb her fingertips were. This is my treasure, my guardian. I completely forgot to grab him. Vaughn grabbed the stone in her hands. She raised her eyes to the queen and said with a smile on her lips, There is no reason for praise, your majesty. I have an excellent physical and spiritual stature. Everything will be fine. I really believe in this. The queen gazed at her intently, then completely lowered the bottle and washed it off. You're just as stuck as your mother. Know that I will respectfully watch over you, and if you let me down again, then we will have a more serious relationship. Have you understood everything? An unnatural knocking sound rose from my temples, and my head became confused. Vona lowered her head and whispered quietly, I made you understand, because I made you doubt me. It won't happen again. In the afternoon, everything was quiet. Everything had faded away, and nothing was happening around it. Revelin, can you hear me? Young lady, it seems that you are flying here in your world. Lift your eyes on me. The princess raised her head and marveled at the queen. It seemed like nothing was wrong with her, and she looked absolutely healthy. That's magic, young lady. It's not an hour before we check for the guests. Oh, I can smell it. I think they've already arrived. The hall was filled with the dull sound of fanfare. The voices were no longer heard. Everyone focused their gaze on the other side of the door and stood guard in fascination. The trumpets were buzzing in her head like an incandescent bell. There were still a few more leftovers from the vessels, no stains and no shine. The fanfare died down. The hall was filled with the low sound of a harp. God, this is so welcoming, she thought. The cello echoed the graceful motif of the harp. The atmosphere was calm. The music gently flowed in the hearts of those present and simply prevented them from speaking. The sound of music is interrupted by a knock. The end of death was approaching. There was a whisper in the reception room. "Who is this? What's the price?" Revelyn felt the pressure at her temples change and a gentle warmth flow to her breasts. She took a deep breath and the warmth sank below her stomach. At this moment, she wanted to scream, but she clenched her fists and tried to escape. "What's wrong with me?" The crocs were approaching. In the eyes of the women present, a kind of mysterious obsession appeared. The leaders could not control their gestures and waved the ship's flag. Silence filled the hall. "This is true. This is true. It was a little light. Great warrior, defeating dark magicians. This is a dark-haired young man with a thin figure. His gray, cold eyes were directed towards the bottom. They were not at all surprised at those who were absent. His cape with leather crocus bounced rhythmically. With a singing stride, the crowd of the attendants squeezing the bright sword at the right hand. Glory to Duke Elmendite. It was very loud. Throughout his entire life, this skinny young man fought off the enemy of the great warrior. He was a rightful swordsman, and he also said that there is no such thing as a bad blow in a duel. Glory to Duke Elmendite. The walls of the castle were grimacing rhythmically. "Friend, is it true?" I can't believe my eyes. In the self-tightening of all dark magicians. "This is legendary. I want to remember it. Glory to the Duke!" The youth raised the fist of his right hand into the air and began to swing it around the area. "Calm down, you." "Well, hero, what's wrong with that? Why are you shouting like that?" "Whoa, who would guess that I'm even hungry? I am very tired of moving, more for the training, endless scream. Why is the behavior of people often similar to the behavior of animals? When you reach one type, 3 new supplementary foods appear. I'm sure they were already preparing the table before the meal. I believe that the power of the sword can be harnessed by even the most powerful warriors. Without the appointments, the honor of being given to him. Many great commanders perished in his searches, and the people who knew this blade perished due to an unknown magic that split them into fragments. I really want to look like Nyogo. Do you think I could have become a great warrior?" The cadet crossed his arms and said brutally, "He is not the only warrior in the whole world. I believe that Commander Tristan could have given him a head start in sword fighting, but he still couldn't beat him." Tristan was in the office of the current leader. He had a firm look, and his entire posture demonstrated the isolation of a decent person, Tsikavo. Thinking about it, why would I have streamed this sword? His cape developed behind him and created the effect of a wide tail. I don't need this fame. I just want to be appreciated. A thought floated here in the middle of nowhere. The music died down for a little while, and everything became quiet again. Another decimal place was lost. They walked gracefully, throwing up the cape with their left hand and lowering themselves onto their knees. When the fabric touched the lining, a slight rustling sound was felt. He raised his head completely and directed his gaze towards the throne. It seemed like everyone was living under such tension. Cold gray eyes pierced to the depths of the soul. His hair fell on his face in unheard skeins. The princess felt the warmth in her lower abdomen again. I tried to create something similar to a laugh, but it didn't seem to be effective. The warmth at the bottom of the navel transferred to the half of my stomach and spread through my legs. Revelyn took a great breath, but it only became worse. She carefully washed the cloth near her lap and looked to her side. "This has never happened to me," she thought. "What's wrong with me? Why do I have such a reaction to someone?" She noticed how the warmth came to her ears, and she felt a little lighter. Well, you'll figure it out. I was already starting to think that this would never end. It seems amazing. Maybe this is a sign? The infection is unimportant, the smut, as soon as this heat has arrived. She felt a slight vibration as she vibrated the stone. It had been going on for 3 months, and up to this point, but the stone was being shaken especially hard. The princess noticed the cold in the valley. She wanted to take a look at him, but suddenly realized that she could be marked and streamed. "Accept my greatest warrior, Duke Fitzurk. I'm glad to see you at my palace. Wasn't the road too hard? What's your mood? I feel about your exploits. It's just amazing. Be kind. Be as generous as possible with me. Is it all true what I feel about you? Sir Duke, display your supernatural familiarity and rise from your knees. Let me know my stupidity." Did you defeat the dark magicians on your own?" The Duke rose from his knees and spoke in a calm voice. "To be honest, most of them, without my participation, stumbled upon my sword. You are well aware, Your Majesty, that these dark magicians are no longer important. Everything you heard about me was just too much. I have always been impressed by your sense of humor and steeliness. It's neutral. How does it happen in the world so that the beginners of Volodinia do not succumb to the attacks of a sharp mind with a sword, a master of all trades? You have a lot to learn." A slight chuckle appeared at the Duke's appearance. "You'll overdo it, sir. Excuse me against these hyperboles. Laugh together. It's amazing. I want to drown in this volume. After fighting with me on your seats, you will lose a trace of my teeth. I'm on fire. This doesn't help at all. What's wrong with me? You need to stream it. In truth, Your Majesty, I would not have been able to get through without you. Your help is very valuable to me. I have access to all maps. I have the best access. What else do you need to fight? I wanted to. I forgot about it. Sword. This is the only thing I got without you. However, there is less acceptance of the game of words and even more acceptance of verbal duels. For the next hour, Revelyn was spared supernatural respect for herself. Bazanya had a dream, but she still had one thing missing. Tsikavo, what are we talking about the stink? He seems to be a great warrior. I would really like to verify that Volodya rightfully wields his sword. My family killed my dad. What's going on with me? I myself don't know what I want. He is the same killer as everyone else, but his presence extinguished my heat. I'm lost. Images of the past were poured before my eyes. Mother, blood. Raptum eunuch, in a booming, soft voice, became like a princess. Today is a special day. Young, beautiful Revelyn comforts us with her company. He chuckled, but realized that his words were not accepted. Sympathy, contrastedly, changed to anger and anger. Images of her mother appeared before her eyes. Blood, plenty of blood. It seemed like my heart was being squeezed by the judges. She was shaking, but it was incredible. How dare you turn against me? I hate my whole family. Vaughn clenched her fist and lowered her gaze. Literally just seconds before her eyes, all the greedy lives associated with this noble homeland were gone. Having calmed down, she rose sharply from the throne and marveled at him. In just 1 minute, the princess has clearly changed. Grace appeared in this move. In very calm ways, she approached the new one. A charming smile spread across her face, demonstrating her beauty. It is a great honor to receive such a guest, as I could not miss this banner ceremony. I welcome your company, and I trust that you will not mind my presence. Charming ball, sir. You don't respect me that much? From this exposure came a laugh. Vin looked at her intently. Wonderful girl. Thinking about it. Everyone knows it's a tragic story, and that's why there's little chance of getting along with me. They couldn't tell of their fiery character. They suit me like that. Are you playing with me? Vaughn noticed how her heart was flying out of her chest. Blood. Plenty of blood. Although she laughed playfully, a storm was brewing in the depths of her soul. When do you decide it will all end? She thought. She's laughing so hard because she's found a new victim. This bird is not yours, girl. There's nothing wrong with that. Why do they want to hang around our palace? Behind, 2 friends muttered softly and praisefully. Previously, there was nothing wrong with it. God, what a mess! What a mess! Vaughn flirts with him. All eyes were focused on her. Some whispered, and others expressed their dissatisfaction with gestures. From a distant corner of the hall, words sounded as if no one had sensed them. Vaughn is cursed. The docks all followed Revelyn without losing respect for the queen. Their thoughts faded. There will be problems with you, young lady, but I can guess right now. It only takes me a little time, and you get what you deserve. Your mother's share checks for you. As she wandered through her thoughts, she didn't feel too much light. Chanting is the best way. Don't listen to anyone. Don't learn anything. Together, the world blossomed, and her blue eyes turned towards her. Who are you? Who's a blood-born hero? I don't have any thoughts about this. I will never become free. Vaughn noticed how the skin began to bake on her neck like a coin. The princess's fortunes faded. It's too bad that I can't change it in the past. The melodious reason for this behavior itself is this, but the God of God, that I am not guilty of the mercy of the past. The need is to deprive the poor girl of peace. The princess is like her mother, like 2 drops of water. This is where the hair was transferred from her to the oar. Once upon a time, her mother laid her hands on Duke Fitzurk's family. This glorious line has sworn to seize and protect the cordons of our kingdom. Really, there is no approach plan. The stigma of being a villain hung over her mother. The enemies and allies instantly turned into enemies. Being a woman with a strong character, she did not rely on heartless Zagarbniks. Virok sounded like this. Strat on guillotine. She remembers what happened yesterday. The quiet creaking of boards as her mother left. The cold and firm voice of a brutal cat, which is otherwise thin in the place of recognition. That day, our endeavour nature, on the other hand, managed to sense the possible loss. Who is accused of saying the last word? Vona raised her eyes and said calmly, No, I don't mind. A sharp ruff of the Kata and her neck, her hands were closed. I was quietly sniffling. The voices died down. I felt like it was zen. Blood flowed down the underside. The head fell into the frame with a dull thud. The smell of blood is in the air. There was not one person who was wasted today. Kat laying her body professionally on her shoulder. At this hour, the eyes of the cut head opened up like a storm. The eyes widened. Revelyn and her brother were taken alive, having been separated forever. "Turn my brother around," she screamed. "Let go! Let me go!" The little girl tried to escape from the grasping hands, but everything was in jeopardy. Vona tasted yoga. The ears began to ring, and the darkness faded. How many people want freedom? We are called free? The queen's death radically changed the girl's life. More light came out of her. Hatred arose in the hearts of people and suddenly turned into the princess's back. I want to become a little bird and fly far, far away to the ends of the world. There is no one in the place. Perhaps I would have been spared and I would have met good people. Who knows, but it's still better than what I'm talking about. I will always remember you, Matusia. The 2 people seemed to pierce Revelyn's heart. How can those who cannot accept me accept me? Who are you? Hero? Vorog? Driven in? Ailey Stone, it will pulsate if you're in order. And this heat, what's wrong with me? The image of the Duke of Elmondite blossomed and she felt like a stone was shattering here. Oh my God, what happened? Everyone whispered lively and directed their gaze towards the clinking of their glasses. Don't boast about the gentleman, it's just a glass. Can I finish it now? A voice sounded in her head. Yes, everything is correct. This is especially true for those who hate me and share with me in mutual respect, just like before. You need to occupy your mind with something else. The blood came to her ears, and she felt a sharp pain in her head. Everything in my eyes blurred, and it began to get dark. I don't know why. Try yourself. Don't be sad. Another beat and body will no longer be heard by me. I won't fall. She bowed slightly to her side and covered her eyes. At the last moment, she huddled behind the king's cape. The ice, flowing with zeal, reflexively touched her hair. The king felt that something was pulling at his backside. He looked around and marveled at her in amazement. There is no doubt about what to do with her, and it seems to me that this is something from dark magic. It is possible that she is somehow connected with dark forces. I want to help her. This is the fault of our family. My love, I feel bad for you again. Please, please go and fix it. Vaughn glanced at the king. Singingly, it would still be better for me to leave the hall. I'm wondering why I shouldn't embarrass you. No, everything is fine, my dear sister. This is a bad ball for your overworldly hustles. What a wonderful thing it was like with the stone. It became either cold or hot and was constantly vibrating with various fractional impulses. Let's brighten it up with light. These exchanges played playfully on the new floor, and the vibration disappeared completely. My hand felt a few rhythmic impulses similar to heartbeats. The stone shone brightly and then began to fade. There was no more energy in the valley, but it seemed that the energy had gone out and was no longer there. Another 10 seconds and it will turn into a black stone. What can't you do? This is just a dream, a terrible dream. Soon I will lie down in my lower beds and reveal what will simply be nightly pangs. Vaughn gathered her strength and began to chant. I hope everything will be fine. I felt it behind her. Take care of yourself, my dear. The king chuckled and nodded. Be careful, little sister. Quietly saying, she dribbled her little fingers along the railing without looking back. What is expected? Why now? It was spinning in her head. I could smell the sound of a bird nearby. Vaughn quickly looked at the back of the birds. The sound of its echoes echoed through the walls of the castle. It sounded as if it was more noticeable than the sleeping birds and the knocking of the little birds. A little more, she thought. The loja ended and it began to hum. You can always marvel at these speeches. Sometimes everything is forgotten, and the hour transforms into a kind of knitted essence. It's more powerful. Nothing is important. Only this moment is important. The princess marveled at the dome of the guest hall in fascination. Their thoughts turned into slight hesitations. My head became foggy, my eyes closed a little, and I saw a stove in the street. Good luck. There is one thing that is absolutely impossible to take from a person. Good luck. It's starting to get dark in the eyes. The brand on us began to bake hotly, and Revelyn began to lose her guilt. Mom, she whispered. Then everything became quiet, and her hand weakened. Vona rushed forward, and realizing that she might fall, reflexively grabbed onto the railing. Dark. Chu-ya, e-ya Cthulhu, Fatagen, e-ya Cthulhu, Fatagen. The place of sacrifice was grimacing under the dome. One of the monks read the text of the cursed letter, and from time to time they all repeated with one voice, I-ya Cthulhu, Fatagen, e-ya Cthulhu, Fatagen. Znav sounded like a deadly chorus. My hand trembled nervously, and I felt a slight sting. So cold. I'm already cold. A little bit of the valley shuddered into the other side. Around the morning, it was thick, and it was impossible to see anything. Vona calmed down, but still couldn't say anything. The horns widened and then began to sound. Cold. Why is it so cold? Vona completely closed her eyes and realized that she was getting confused in her head. Vaughn opened her eyes and took a great breath. The light shone unacceptably in the eyes, but there was no longer any confusion. She concentrated a little and whispered, Where am I? She came to you, and before her eyes appeared some kind of wondrous beast. Are you a ram? Are you a goat? It was lost on her in the Duma. This mystical miracle is not enough two pairs. In New York, the dog's squeak is sharp and sharp, like teeth. You're at the party, my dear, hissed Monster. Even worse, you are not in the capacity of a guest. As soon as she was thirsty, she opened her mouth a little. The deep eyes trembled in fear. It seemed that her body took up from the phalanges of her fingers to the tips of her hair. Uneasiness and light wind. The monks fell silent, and there was a panicked silence. The demon is now quietly hissing, and sometimes loudly screaming quotes from some curse. Once upon a time, we tried to trim the princess without interfering with her bodies. Its corporeal form floated limply in the wind. The demon didn't hesitate. Raptum, the little one's back bent, and she made a noise. A bright light appeared from the heavens. Vinbub directions on it. The stamp of the coin's shape appeared on my neck. The servants happily went on a spree. Now you are mine. I felt a whistling whisper. The eyes opened wide. There is fire in them. Vaughn was shaking from the blows of the flashlight. The whole body was shaking. The mouth was open. The boats twisted her body in different directions, and there was a distinct crunch in her limbs. The ringing cry rose up. There was silence. A booming scream split the sky at night, and after that it was obscured by silence. For another hour the voices were still heard, but the stench quickly died down. There was a sound of little birds sleeping. The stench carried away the lost soul. Revelyn shuddered at the sound of the falling crystal. Good luck. I want to forget everything. Having lifted the stone, she marveled at the new one. What can you do? It burned up to her breasts, but she didn't see anything. Mit's turmoil has washed over her heart. Vaughn began to drum her hands on the parapet with incredible force. Having hit the corner of her finger, she shook her hand and began to cry. Why did you bother yourself with me? Am I the only one in this world? Who can help me? Tears began to fall from her eyes. Wusta twisted her head and began to stutter under her skin. I might not like it a little. She covered her mouth with her hand. The doors creaked open. Changes of light fell on the illuminated red path. Who can you do? Thought the princess. Chantley, this is the servant. Although I didn't often go to these places. Princesso, Reveline. Is everything okay with you? I felt a human voice. The cries were approaching, and there was a skin kick as they were knocked out by her head. What man? What is it timid? Vaughn wanted to turn around, but out of fear her body did not listen to her. I'll ask again, sir. How do you feel? This voice cannot be confused. Don't you know? Duke Elmondite. Everyone on your lips is sick, so what can I do to help you? This is not the time to have a conversation with me. Oblish me. Why doesn't anyone understand me? Why do I need anyone else if I want to live on my own? Tim went up to her and continued chewing for an hour. Before speaking, I often get confused in my head if there is no humor in my soul. Do you feel anything like this? I have never known a greater fool in my life. No, sir. Everything is fine. I feel good about myself. My state is contented, and I guess I don't need a dose of cheerful humor. Vaughn said these words without turning to any new accusations. The darkness was approaching, and Revelyn felt the familiar warmth of her stomach below her stomach. With her right hand, she carefully collected the tears from her accusation. She took a deep breath, trying to calm down, and began to rise from her knees. Then, sensing his proximity, everyone began to tremble. The warmth rose to the chest, and then again gradually descended to the bottom. It's okay. The wind shook. Otherwise, being afraid, the little girl turned around sharply. My head became foggy, and my body felt half sick. Palyucha at least captivated her mind. They wrapped their fingers around the Duke's hand with a tight knot. With her powerful hand, the princess fell to her breasts. I want, she whispered. Hot orange eyes burned in the darkness. Having looked at them, he almost felt a twinge of pain. This is a pardon. What was the matter? I want, she repeated. He looked around the entire room with an unsatisfied glance, but was wary of whoever was watching them. The lips pressed together and tried to make a few steps back, but the princess was attracted to the new one by a magnetic field. He looked around the hall again with a dissatisfied look. I understand you, all the stress. It would be better to go to the chambers, please finish. It's possible you're hallucinating. You're doing something really strange. In his eyes, it seemed like he was proudly applauding her. Vaughn opened her mouth to say something else, interrupting her at the end. Lady, I have no intention of telling you again. This is all the effect of weakness. This is stress. There is no need for any words, please. Let's move on to the action. Do you understand that I am respectful? He marveled at her with his eyes. With a sharp roar, the Duke fell down on the pretext. You felt like hard tongs were wrapped around your belt. His hands were clenched at the wrists with small scarlet fingers. What are you up to? Tse yakas gra? Chi approach plan. Lie down and don't collapse. I'll show you this now. Vaughn smiled and kissed him. She sank a little lower and kissed her. Hands gently caressed his hair. Vaughn crushed the graceful arm with her whips and kissed him again. The vusts greedily intertwined with each other. The skin's breathing was noisy and strained, and it seemed like it was not getting up in the morning. The hands fell on the jacket and the skin, one by one, and began to lightly stretch Elmondite's loosening loop. He moved away from her. Get stuck! Alivona didn't mumble. I greedily buried it behind my neck, and their lips again intertwined in the fire dance. The hand gently slipped under the shirt. Isn't it appropriate for you? The beast purred. The puddings from the shirt scattered into the carnage of the sides. Tenacious fingers swept the body, digging nails into the skin. I want. The voice sounded again. With a light blow, she knocked him down for a reason and got sick. I want it right now. The flabby skin over there pestered his neck and hissed strainingly. Cursed. Half of me buried the skin of my body. On this day, images of a ceremonial initiation appeared. This is the same. Horned demon. Damn it. I want. These words darkened all other thoughts. Vona arched her back and shook her quill-shaped rock. The Duke seemed tense. Yogo looked at the spoils of destruction. Unexpectedly, the backside of the valley touched her cheek. Vona closed her eyes and bowed down to her. I want it too. It was lost in the Duma. Fitzert grabbed her by the waist with an onslaught of kisses. The partner follows the rhythmic dance of his companion. Everything was mixed up. Gently snuggling with her legs, she purred quietly, unconsciously. I've been mulling for an hour. A sweet, sticky kiss sparked a lot of passion between them. The hands, which were not self-conscious, looked like they were unheard of struggling with their tests. She pressed herself even harder. You can feel how unnaturally her heart beats. I breathe, I see. The wind didn't rise, but I didn't have the strength to fight. I no longer had the strength to endure it. Take this cursed garment from me. I felt a quiet whisper. Hands gently circled around her waist, a little bit more rose, and the cloth began to slowly unravel. Schwitze! The ligaments were still struggling and did not want to yield to the human fingers. You tried to open them, but did not tighten them even tighter. Revelin bit Yogo's earlobe. You'll strangle me. The necessary knot appeared, and the cloth, with a quiet rustle on the skin, began to fall completely. Some of these statues appeared in light shadows under the light of the month. Taking his hand, it burned to her breasts. There is a spell placed on her. Vaughn is cursed. The dark light had a brand on her neck. The Duke lowered his hand to his waist and pulled her closer to him. The clothes will loosen your body, and you will feel a sweaty feeling. My dear mother had already killed my father. Having been surrendered, she wrapped all the women's bindings perfectly. One day it was discovered that Queen Famella had killed the king. I squeezed my heart. Mother cursed Famelli's son for what they spent. Sometimes it is impossible to explain the actions of the slaughtered woman. The court and jury unanimously praised the virus. Punishment is mortal. It seemed that no one was summoned by the seemingly destructive force. Lubov, hatred. For an hour, the whole thing. Mother was at the helm of affairs for the less intelligent. Why do these things look completely different to other people? Universal injustice. Doki Famella was calmed by the overwhelm. Mother was burning with half-zealousness. I was still a little girl and didn't understand the horror of the situation. For me, life was like an unexplored book that I was trying to learn. That day came. Vikananya Viroku Day. A lot of people came. Hatred shone in their glances. The Viguks were heard. The images were pouring into the beak of the mischief maker. Ishav plan. Podii were carved into memory just yesterday. Matusia mumbled, and when the time came for the last word, she gave up. Her hands were shackled with cadence. Every now and then, a light ringing of metal could be felt. Vikanadi Virak. A masterful voice sounded. The sound of scraping metal cut through the wind. With a slight whistle, the blade flew to the bottom. There was a slight crunch, and the mother's head separated from her body. I shuddered and covered my mouth with my hand. Mom, I screamed. After that, the heather burst out of my throat, but I didn't feel anyone. I coughed and screamed again. Mom, spaghetti is the only thing that cannot be taken from a person. Our region has a long history. This family is noble and has ruled for more than one generation. Ever since I was a child, I am still a little amused. May you please? It turned out that I had a garish relish, and that's why I gained popularity in this and other lands. Father did not mark me and gave more than an hour to the new queen. I don't know, it's possible that she cursed peace, and it's worse. But I turned into an invisible, visible little cat. Everything fell apart into tiny rolling pins in the darkness of the image in the mirror. The constant images got so bad that I couldn't talk to anyone. I became withdrawn and sheepish. My full-blood brother was crowned, and now all respect was focused on him. Nobody cared about me. Ailey, to be honest, it seemed less important. I wanted more than one thing, and my mother turned around. The coronation was carried out according to all traditions. My brother has taken his blessing. The young king took the throne and properly accepted his duties. Regardless of everything, I wrote to him, and we always had a garni of hundreds. My anxieties constantly overwhelmed me, and that's why I decided to enter a women's monastery. I wanted to feel safe. I began to study ancient manuscripts in order to prepare myself and be fit for entry. Bastian didn't like this idea and kept telling me. Once again, I was more loving than before, and I trusted him, but I didn't listen to him. Some of us clashed with each other, and the initiator of the growth of wine. The women's monastery is not a place for you. Kazov in me. Life in this new world is difficult. Little sister, be kind. Don't rush and think carefully about this important little thing. I don't wish you harm and you know it. Listen to me, count up to 25 rocks. Even though you are so young, your decision to take the plunge is unreasonable. There was a lot of anxiety in my eyes. I started thinking about it. You wanted to help me, but without a doubt, even a word escaped me. Bastian, I understand your boasting, but you don't hear me. Why are you so desperately trying to change my decision? I'm no longer a little girl, and I understand that the world is no brighter for you. My voice was often heard. In order to raise my spirits, we have given Trojans, and I could admire their whimsical little girls for years. This calmed me down. The newly crowned queen was steadily wheezing barbed words, and these Trojans symbolized the insecurity that a tendentic card could bear. Brother, being even more relaxed and in a hurry, I was ready to enter the women's monastery if I had completed 25 years. Evening walks in the greenhouse reminded me of long ago when my mother was still alive. Vaughn became my shuvk, my secret place. My life is one of unprecedented and wondrous times. That's a fact. Less than a month ago, I was planning to take the fate of the Polyuvana. I have always liked horse riding sports. I arose from the dark group and got lost. In the forest, I met dark magicians. Trying to get out of them, I lost myself even more in the dark. My test was a failure, and they caught up with me. I had to tear off the skin of one of them in front of me, and after that, I fell asleep and I lost my knowledge. The monks performed a devilish ritual, and a curse was placed on me. The Pakel mark on the back of my neck could not be erased by any means. I looked through old manuscripts and recognized this old curse of cunning. Now, I am forever a slave to my household. The sleepy exchanges began to sparkle. A new day is upon us. The sun rose unstoppably and set the shadows of the kingdom. I felt the sound of a bird, signaling the beginning of a new cycle. Everything came to life. Revelyn opened her eyes. Am I in bed? Marvelous. What happened yesterday? Vaughn tried to tell fortunes, but the dream had not yet appeared, and her knowledge was obscured. Having rubbed her eyes with her hands, she sat up a little in her bed. My headache. There's nothing else. The heat has risen. I have never felt so good. My body is as light as a feather. Miraculous. This illness has resolved. Illness. Yesterday's ball. Oh no. In front of the eye of the wine tree is the silhouette of a young man. Yogo denunciation bulo rosmite. The fortunes were partial, unclear. She strained her memory with all her might and tried to figure out any small detail that would tell her who the culprit was. Who is this? She whispered quietly. Trying to guess, she closed her eyes and again guessed all the images that were lost in the guesses. The ball, the foyer, the greenhouse, and then the evening. Who is it? Vona froze. A look at the directions went empty. Repeat after repeat. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is what it is like, what a sleepless dream it is, she thought. Images appeared uncontrollably in front of her eyes. A sweet kiss and the heat of your body. Unbearable sweating and goosebumps running down my skin. Surprisingly, she closed her eyes to the salt and took a deep breath on her back. Still, it was nasty. I was honored. He doesn't want revenge. Unturbulently spreading her arms and legs at random sides, she threw herself onto the couch and marveled at the Steely. Who are you, the secret stranger? The brand froze on my neck. I calmed down. Don't bake, she thought. It's amazing. I can already see it, but now there's no point in sleeping. She rubbed her neck with her hand, bending her back a little. A thought flashed through my head. And how did this secret stranger tell anyone about our sustrich? This greedy thought has sunk headlong into her greed. The cloth and fabric softly fumbled under her hand. A thought flashed through her head. And how did this secret stranger tell anyone about our sustrich? This greedy thought has sunk headlong into her greed. The cloth was wiped, and the fabric softly fumbled under her hand. Gently tie the cloth and soak it. Aren't you talking about the skies? I haven't even noticed how everything went wrong, but I'm still ahead of it. I hope this is not the end of our sustrich. Sometimes you need to embrace the moment. The hour of not forgetting and getting ready for the next day flies by. What's next? No one knows it, and no one has yet dreamed of it. I can tell you one thing, sir. There was no mercy. I understand that you don't have any big plans, young lady. You want to preserve secrecy, and that's fine. I value mystery in women. You kissed her at the back and smelled the smell of her hair. Oh my, it's a mystery. Tsikavo. In truth, everything happened in vain. But I don't remember you, sir, but you know very well who I am, she mumbled. She clenched her fists nervously and hissed with displeasure. A light haircut and crappy shoes easily rotted my feet. The heel of the right foot got stuck a little and the shoe wouldn't fit, so she straightened it with her hand. They clicked the chins. Without leaving the bed, she raised her hand and sounded a light tinkle. Marietta! The princess called. Marietta, come to me. I sensed quicker crumbs. The servant came into the room and asked with a low bow, What are you saying, sir? Riva swallowed her lips a little and turned her gaze to her side. Vona froze and then turned sharply to the servants. I felt bad about myself yesterday, and I remember the end of the ball bad. Marietta, what day did I return to my chambers? Mary thought for a moment and raised her finger to her chin. You turned to the light, sir. Do you feel better? Do you need anything? I know you love ginger tea. Would you like to have some tea? The servants marveled at her with shock. To Svitanka? Images of the previous night quietly floated before my eyes. Hug, kiss, fire. A slight tingle of warmth ran through her body. Tell me, Marie, did I turn around alone? There was no one with me? Vibak for all this amazing food, but I don't remember anything at all. I'll understand you. The servant turned up. You turned to Grey Jayard. He carried you in his arms and said that you were sick. To be honest, ladies and gentlemen, you were asleep, and I didn't notice any signs of illness. Are you all right? I won't sweat it out for long and will hastily leave your chambers. Before the eyes of Vinik Spogod. Even though she's carrying her in her arms, she opens her eyes, but the figure is not visible. In my thoughts. Tsebov Tristan, what can't you do? The eyes opened wide, and the fire seemed to ignite in them again. I guess you're a naughty girl. We can't do this. The slabs will be scattered around the world because of the illness, and now I will be forced to hunt again. Tristan was the first warrior of the kingdom of Bridgant. Vidami is far beyond the outskirts of their lands, commander-in-chief of the king's Red Guards, the glorious commander who was known by his exploits and skills in fighting with the sword. He especially brought you, and after this order, so that the doctor would not be called before you. Having said, train your tongue behind your teeth. Ladies, I promise you that no one knows about this. Don't drive me away. Everything I smell and I don't forget. I hope you're already feeling better. Why are you talking? Do you feel bad? Did I act wrongly? What should I do? Be kind. Don't hesitate. Marietta opened her mouth and visibly looked tensely at the princess. My hands were shaking. Tristan Jayard. Now everyone knows about her dungeon. She covered her mouth with her hand and took a deep breath and inhaled noisily through her nose. The fire-filled deep eyes were inexorably locked. Revelyn straightened her hair with her right hand. Diakuyu, Marie, everything is fine. You may be free to go and do your work. There are no people in the world who have no secrets. Well, as you know, everything is too early or too late. The law of life is not scriptural. Vona guessed a fragment from last night. Tristan pestles her hair and how she can speak, but she says inaudibly. His voice sounds different underwater. There was complete silence in the room. Revi sat on her bed with her hands clasped and tensely marveled at the window. Images of yesterday's happiness mixed with anticipation and anxiety swirled in her thoughts. What can't you do? What a mercy! She washed out and rose sharply. You need to talk to him specifically. Dormos exchanges playfully appeared on the blades of swords. There was a distinct sound and a rustling sound hitting the ground. Training of holders of the Red Order. I1, I2, I3, Shvidshe. I said, Shvidshi, Adam, Vilsar, pick up the pace. The instructions of the master for the mysteries of battle sounded. The young man is in the room. His eyes showed dissatisfaction, having washed a few breaths in a tense voice. Sir Jayard, don't you think that you won't be able to get anywhere right now? The training itself began to grow. We don't have a lot of time to prepare. Your presence is no longer needed for us. Without wrapping your head around your food supply, have the Vizniks already delivered us a new batch of arrows? You are one of the finest archers and are guilty of control. Responsibility, access for the heads of the Red Order. Don't bother me with your thoughts. Tristan thoroughly polished his sword. Hello, sir. This is not the time to talk to women. You said that the head is not responsible. Leaving the service before the end of the training is an easy decision. Lock it. Sharply interrupting Jayard. Don't ruin my mood. Take care of your rights. Tisha, you can feel the knocking sounds. Another young person enters the room. Allow me, sir, to inform you of the terminology. The local Mislovians train dark magicians in the Western lands. I am waiting for your order. Send the spies. We must know this in a sing-song manner. People often have mercy. I'm wondering if you'll be especially kind to the intelligence bastard, a master in sound activities. What is your remaining decision? Today's melodious dark energy darkens the minds of my children, and I repeat to my daughters, execute the order. If you have not understood, I repeat, follow the order. In order to reach the highest level of mastery, it is necessary to beat 1,000 blows. I add 10,000 approaches to training swordsmen. Vikenite. The young men's throats were dry, and the stench was loud. Is it not clear to you? Vikenite. A little bit of fumbling sounded. Yes, sir. At a peaceful pace, he headed straight to the flock. His cloak fluttered in the wind like the tail of a chimera. Vin clenched the fist of his right hand. May there be curses all day long. Whisper, Vin, do you know where Pishoff is? Sir Tristan left his service for the princess. If it's stupid, why does a warrior have the right to replace his service with some kind of girl's service? Quiet. Now he senses us and turns away 20,000 approaches to the sword. Are you crazy? Stool your pelku. Empty the tension and look at the directions infinitely. Unconcerned with the streaming and calm external appearance, in the middle of his information, irritation was seething. I've been listening to Revelin all the time since last night. It was lost in the Duma. Evening fell on the land of the kingdom of Bringant. A shadow appeared behind the object. The top galloped along the Commune brook. The gates opened. I love you, Sir Jayard. Let the princess know that I have arrived and water my horse. With a light shave, I will leave the seat. The tail of the chimera hung in the corridors of the castle. Movchanka. Crocs rush against the walls of the corridor. The servant, with downcast eyes, escorts Tristan. After the sun has passed away, the brightening places say goodbye to today's day with their lower light. Does the princess feel good? Yes, sir. It sounded awkward. Thinking about it. There was a scream behind the window. He turned around and looked at the sound. What is it? By asking it's okay, sir. The villains were captured in advance. These are their voices. Evildoers suffer but are punished. Having said Vin Movchanka, you can feel the tinkling sound of your fingers hitting the door. Allow me, the maid said. No one is convinced. Vona knocked on the door again. Tisha. Tristan pushed aside Marietta and walked to the door. Come in, Sir Jayard. I checked for you. She said, don't turn around. Do you need anything, sir? The maid asked. No, you can be free. Zalish us. There was an unpleasant pause. There was an electric current in the room. The weather is amazing today. I spent the whole day in the greenhouse admiring the lotus flowers. The dormouse's spots shimmer so brightly on their petals. What about V? How was your day? Vona turned around and marveled at him with a chuckle. There was no emotion in the face. Weather? Is that right? What do you want to talk to me about? Singing, I spend my time in a melodious manner. The sight of his thoughts became distorted, and his gaze became firm and irritated. Stramano bowed and washed. You are absolutely right, young lady. The weather is wonderful today, but it's a pity that I rarely have enough space to appreciate the full depth of its beauty. I have tried other foods before you. The door to the room opened, and the servants entered. Without raising her eyes, the servant brought the tea set and placed it on the table. Do you need anything, sir? No, leave us. Sir Jayard, I am obligated to answer your questions. But first of all, I would like to treat you to my favorite ginger tea. What do you say? Tea is the best thing in the world. Tsikavo, who have you seen? As it happens, people got tired of drinking too much water, and so the stench began to rise from the leaves and leaves of the roses. Well, let's go out. Let's go to the roof of the village. To sound greedy, but with gusto, divine. You don't respect me that much? His inner frustration manifested itself in public. The little ones clenched their lips together. Yes, of course. To sound greedy, but with gusto, divine. He turned his cold gaze on her. Perhaps the princess still wanted to talk to me? So, I have something to talk to you about. Yesterday's nothing. Vona began to hum. I wanted to tell you why there's so much more to your side. Sometimes I myself don't understand what's going on with me, and I can't control my body. I hope you understand me. I'm really into you. Brown eyes glared at Revelin before Passur. Behind the window, I felt the scream again. Tristan reflexively looked around and then focused on her again. How do you feel today? Do you feel better now? Their denunciations did not reflect everyday emotions. She tried with all her might to avert his gaze, but the feeling in the middle of her was tight and wouldn't let go. Second, 2, 3. Vonnie Marvel, 1-on-1. Raptum Revelin noticed how the blood rushes before her exposure. Calm down. It sounded in her head. Yesterday you had a lot of fun. Being a gentleman, I hesitate to show off my clothes. Don't boast. You will lose the prison between us. I also got ahead of the servants so that the stench was thoroughly trimmed between my teeth. Yesterday's events are not a topic for tiles. I won't let you down. The hand trembled and a thin clink of teaware was felt. At this moment, his brown eyes let go of their fullness and marveled at the pot of tea. The princess choked. The dungeon? Tongue behind teeth? What exactly is it? This game is starting to displease me. Her hands trembled under the flooding of her face, but she tried with all her might to stream herself. Calm down, little girl. Movila to herself. Having lowered the pot of tea onto the saucer, the sound of 3 hands began to click again. In your face, I distrust you. I understand. The people are smart to the point of nonsense. The people often do not support the essentials of the day, but do not rise to the level of members of the Order of Hearts. I will save this prison, I swear. Occupying the veins, staring at her intently, she mumbled. The lips trembled a little, but nothing was said. The tension was pressing hard on the sleepwalkers. I don't believe in the honor of the red faces. I don't believe in anyone. You have the right to do as you please. After these words, anger appeared in her eyes. Streaming has flourished. The faces of his face expressed joy. A few minutes after opening the mouth, I want to say something. I thought the nobles were talking about the red faces. She interrupted. It seems that more than half of the army has flowed from the remaining battlefield. How can I trust such people? His eyes widened. This is a screw-up. This is absolute nonsense. Who told you that? As you believe in these words, I am ready to punish the plasters who are representatives of the nobles. Vin slammed his fist into the table. The entire tea set has been stripped. Who is this? Who is this brutish cooker? Since you are not afraid to call the name of that scoundrel who is everywhere talking about lies, then I would like to find out who is guilty. Our voice will be calm, but we will repeat. I don't compare you to the healthiest, as you thought. The world is not a safe place, and it's better to be careful. Vaughn grabbed him by the quick, and it was like him. Having control over the situation significantly improved her mood. She continued to chew with a sly laugh at her accusation. It only takes a few hours before you find out who spoke the words. I have different nutrition than you. You have always sensed hostility towards me, so why yesterday did you decide to help me? In a calm tone. I advised you from the Special Security Department that we have not a little bit of interest in how to unite us. There is no one in my life. She chewed the crumbs with her eyes numb. Is your accomplishment yesterday a heroism? A callous warrior can't booty smell it, but I think you're the same. Feeling these words, he slightly raised his eyebrows, his eyes becoming soft. You are right. So, I'm a simple warrior, and perhaps I don't understand all the subtleties of a woman's nature. That's a fact. So, how could I be encouraged by the rare opportunity to accept a gift from a charming maiden? Everything turned upside down. Nesimovich's fierceness buried Reveline. There was fire in her eyes. Her teeth were exposed. Daranok? Tse-buv for Nyogo Daranok? Who does she blame herself for? Vona clenched her fists so tightly that she could feel her nails digging into her skin. Got up. Listen to me with respect, Sir Jayard. If you are a good gentleman and a well-behaved man, you should know that not everything that is given needs to be accepted. Not everything we give you is meant for you. I have just a few words. Vaughn tried to get into the legend again and continued. You are a Nahab and a rude man, Tristan. Her body trembled under the ferocity that buried her. I just want to say that, as soon as the words hit my tongue, my eyes widened. I haven't checked this kind of wine. It's clear that the situation is getting out of control. Tristan spoke. Princess, I don't want to imitate you, and I'm sorry for everything that's been said, but I don't quite understand what's going on. Our promise is to go beyond the bounds of decency, and that's what it's all about. Your behavior makes me crazy. Didn't anything make sense? It's not so easy to be a shaggy man. I want the human race to be dry and callous. This is incomprehensible to me, Tristan. When she said this, her voice twisted and sounded mocking. I was inspired by these games, and I want our Razmova to be completed. Right away, right away. Standing up, she chuckled violently and tossed a lock of oar hair to one side with a jerk of her head. Having eaten a bunch of crumbs, she turned around and washed away. You could show generosity and not bother the powerless young lady. You were quick to grab what you need, rather than heroically showing generosity. Know this. Thoughts hovered in my head like wild valleys. My heart began to beat faster and felt as if it were pulsating at my temples. Vin focused his gaze with joy. The eyebrows came together, and a small hole appeared between them. Reaching the door, Revelin sensed. "Princess, watch out!" Vona babbled. She clenched her fists and punched herself in the sides in dissatisfaction. "What's wrong? What do you want from me?" She closed her eyes and curled her mouth. He quickly pulled himself up from the center of the room to her. The crocs were singing and noisy. "I'll ask again. I sing something I don't understand. What did you just say? Having calmed down? What does this mean? What are you doing on the car?" The fog cleared. Everything became clear and reasonable. Vona took a deep breath and froze. Yesterday night, a dark stranger pestered her body, playing with it like a love toy. Having felt the skin cells of the body, we will work with it as a single whole through the place of the bubbling Khan. Ideal. Not Tristan, she thought. Vona turned around sharply. Her wide eyes seemed to swell at once. She checked for confirmation, but she mumbled. Nyakovo lowered her eyes completely, and then sharply turned around and quickly ran out of the room. The room was filled with silence. Tristan suffered from destruction and slaughter. "It's obvious that you need protection, princess. Why do you think anything new?" Vishav from Vitality. The melodic sound of the cello mixed harmoniously with the melody of the violin. The musicians, with the right hands, consecrated graceful feats, demonstrating their mastery. There was an atmosphere of calm and grace. The servants fluttered in front of the swallows, cutting through the wind. The low savor of the herbs spreads with a subtle aroma throughout the territory. Sometimes there was a noticeably muted voice and streams of laughter. The nobles were resting. Queen Femela sat at the edge of the table, with Bastian and Revelin farther away. The small white dog in the hands of the maid sometimes wanted to be squeezed from her hands, and if in no way it came out with a saucy grunt. Femela repeated steadily, "Calm down, Benicio." The princess looked with a weary look at the two little birds who were hanging out by the fountain. "If you knew how much I wanted to keep you company, then in a sing-song voice you would have gathered at the great play, picked me up, and carried me away far, far away. It would be wonderful." Bastian was sensitively amazed at his full-blood sister. Thoughts screamed in his head. "My love, what am I doing with you? You know I'm not myself. What kind of unknown illness is poisoning your soul?" Otherwise, sensing his glance, she turned around to another. His eyes became closer. "How do you feel about yourself, sister?" Vaughn rubbed her hands nervously, looking ruined. "So, everything is fine with me. I'll ask you again for those I know. I'll make you show off. Everything is just wonderful." She tried to laugh, but her laugh looked unnatural. The king of discontent died. There are no signs of illness. The queen's voice was cold and a little raw. "Revelin, are you misinformedly putting us in a bad mood? If this is the case, then it is good to come out in you." "Bastian, please." After these words, the dog barked loudly. "Everything is true, Benicio. It's almost like a simulation. All the creatures sense this lie. Vibhakta, be kind. I didn't want to ruin anyone's mood." The voice sounded quiet and unsinging. The back was completely stiff, and this created additional discomfort even on the skin and under a close gaze. She looked again at the back of the birds, but they were no longer there. All hope left her. "This behavior is unacceptable. If I become unbearable, I can't stop and suffocate you before it's necessary. Damn you, bad girl. It's the same as its mother, soft and weak. The time comes, and you come to your mother, I promise you." The queen's face tensed nervously, causing her to grimace. Before the meal, Duke Elmendite and his guardsmen arrived. The duke did nothing and thoughtfully admired the beauty of the garden. They found that his eyes were closing, and he was shaking, waking up from sleep. Having washed the wine, "Do I feel like the princess is sick? How do you feel about yourself? Is it even better?" Their eyes narrowed at the bite. In his blue-gray eyes, there was a hint of boredom. You marveled at her with unblinking eyes, not having seen anything before. The light died down, and the sun caught up with him at the same time. Not a single meat fell on his face, and this alarmed Revelin. Sensing the heat of her eyes, she turned her gaze to the side. Show slept on the thought. Drive in. And after a few seconds, the image of his incrimination became familiar to her. The brand began to pulsate on my neck. CT. Mist in the Duma. Nevstate Sabuvti? The blood rushed to her ears and she began to rummage. My little sister is very stubborn and stuck, and it's very difficult to turn into something, but it seems that she already feels better. Even now, I suspect that the illness is even worse. It is a chronic illness. If you don't rejoice, the camp will only be rejoiced. Molly Beshketnik started barking loudly. His little paws were trembling violently. Otherwise, the little one wouldn't give what he wants. The maid, with a ruined look, tried to grab it in her hands, but more pennies and a dog were given away from her. The dog, having thought about it, sniffed dissatisfiedly. Having tried to taste the servant, she overpowered him with her right hand, and the dog began to grow dissatisfied again. I felt the queen's voice. The creature's empathy is extremely faulty. Benicio, my little one, why are you talking? Do you appreciate our revie? Famella took the dough from the table and gave it to the dog and chewed it for a while. Young lady, if you feel bad about yourself today, then it's better to go to your chambers, and in the meantime, we'll start looking for doctors. This sickly state will last for more than one day. It is necessary to explain the reason for this so that it is not too painful. A sly smile spread across her face. Sister, don't call me to your mother. She didn't want to show you off. How do you feel? If you want to sing, then you don't want to stream music for yourself. There was anxiety in his face. Bastian will always be kind to Revelin, and, although the stench will be less like a true brother and sister, his love will be wide before her. As a sign of recognition, Revelin shook her head from side to side. She winced a little. All is well, brother. With the skin of the skin, I perceive a much more beautiful and valuable sign. A similar smile appeared on her face, but she looked unnatural. There was silence, and it was almost as if the cutlery were clinking as they reached the dishes. The delicacies were known in abundance from the nobleman's clay plates. Super tasty. It sounded like someone. Incredible taste. The situation was returning to normal. Balance and harmony fell on the floor of the lordship. Before I speak, I have a wonderful new thing. From the sacred mountain of Avaris, the great priest Pope Danish will arrive before us. Chivichuli protse? Papa Dansky! What a great honor and great hope for all of us! Incredible! Fameli's voice was streamlined and cold, which testified to her greatness. What is the reason for the arrival of this great and powerful clergyman? I asked. The king's emotions overtook him, and he looked at her and continued. The reason for coming is our great warrior. Yes, yes, gentlemen. The exploits of Duke Elmendite became known far beyond the territory of our kingdom, and they were considered to bestow special blessings on the hero. Do you see? The brand pulsed on my neck. Papa Dansky? It sounded in her head. We can't, Booty! We will recognize my curse. I felt that this mighty power was capable of twisting dark magic. It seems that he could destroy all the dark magicians with just one touch of his finger, but he has no right to do so as not to destroy the global balance of power. I'm doomed. It was important that Papa Dansky was not just a human being, but a god. More than 200 times later, there was a crooked war between good and evil. Humanity was largely impoverished. Chaos is in full swing. From the heavens came the supreme essence of this living thing that has long been called God. In order to restore the balance of wines by creating a barrier against dark forces, the priest was endowed with the great power of pure blessing. If the balance between good and evil is destroyed, you have the right to rub elbows and give gifts to your warriors. This is not just a great honor, but a temporary gift that gives warriors incredible power. The gift of rejection by the voivod is recreated by the nav god. His skin becomes worth more than the dragon's lust. The flesh is deformed and takes on a metallic quality similar to steel. Such warriors toil in the dark with such a stench at night in the building, all the same as before in the day. The respect of those who are absent no longer revived. Sir Elmendite, be so kind as to share your thoughts about this good action. I would even boast in your place that it is not only a great honor, but also a serious responsibility. Shouldn't you be worried? Witzerk was completely calm. His cold eyes met with Famella and washed away. Human skin senses anxiety and fear. Such is human reality. Grimacing for a second, he paused and continued. After the divine rite of worship, the servants of the dark forces will appear, and not me. Laughing forcefully, the queen faked a laugh, covering her mouth with her hand. No more self-congratulations, sir. Don't you think so? Laugh. Don't you have any human weaknesses? Is it so that you couldn't give me a couple of introductory lectures on the basics of streaming? The stench wouldn't bother me. We are close to marveling at him with our eyes. The extra light sounded muffled and inconspicuous. The princess lost her thoughts. Papa Dansky. I was spinning in my thoughts. I have to scream. Everyone knows about my dungeon. Realizing that she had a shabby look, she covered her mouth with her hand. The pulsation has noticeably increased. The brand was aware of the proximity of its sworn enemy. Revelyn covered him with her hand, gently kneading. My fingers trembled, and a chill ran through my body. Unconcerned with the hectic pain in the office, it seemed as if it was getting cold outside. Trojans are military kviti kanya. The charming beauty of Pelyots is no less a mask. Their curled necks rip apart the flesh, singing the stench of the red color. Let's talk about trouble. Revelyn saw her body burnt by the throats of the Trojans. The brand began to burn. I should be screamed at and then spent. He gently rubs his neck. Liuba Matinko, I finally need your help. Why is this punishment for me? Perhaps this is our family curse? Vaughn noted that Duke Elmondite should not make eye contact with her. Turned out, from the distance, you could feel the sound of the carriage wheels. Excited from side to side, Vaughn slowly approached Bringan's place. This is a carriage for Duke Fitzurk. Those present at the party reflexively turned towards the sound. Revelyn. The queen's voice sounded mocking. I remember one woman who believed that she could do without the curse of the dark force. I was buzzing. Revelyn, can you hear me? Yes, I can smell you. The queen chewed. So, the most wonderful woman contacted the novices of dark magic for which she was punished. Fairly punished. It's a pathetic story, that's all I wanted to say. After the blessing, all the servants of evil disappear. This is a wonderful new thing. Revelyn, are you so unimportant? Famella was calmed by the princess's turbulent outward appearance. The eyes became more tired. The sky lost its energy. Slowly, peacefully, without any fuss. This is a long story, and many hours have passed. I am amazed that in our kingdom the servants of dark forces are lurking in the forests. Maximum on what stinks are useful, not to catch the weak victim, as it is impossible to give up. The heart began to tremble, the pressure rose. Vaughn saw the blood pulsating across the skin. Doesn't she know what? Did you Vicryl me? It's just a game. What do you really know? Thoughts rose with the knowledge that her body had become inaudible. The sleeping valleys were rubbing one another. The sages are debating over nutrition, which has more impact on specialism, education, or blood universities. A person purposefully decides to become a servant of dark forces. What other reasons could there be? Pest the dog. From my point of view, the hunchbacked calf's grave should be straightened, and it doesn't matter for any reason that the virus has a hunchback. Thoughts turbulently intertwined one after another. The brand is damned. Matusia is a stratum. Vaughn knows everything. Sounded from Reva's head. Suddenly, his hand shook convulsively, feeling the clink of metal. Try it in your hands. There's no need to guess. Famella is playing with you. The mother-in-law was squealing with a sound of laughter. The Pomeranian Spitz was still poking at her in unison. I am in a completely miraculous mood today. Movila won. Have you ever seen an artifact in the distant lands? Mirror. As soon as you look into the new one, the curse will be broken for you. Tsikavo, really, what's the guess? The social conversation gained all the respect of the nobles and no one, noticing how one of the servants caught and listened respectfully. Sebula Marietta, mirror, she said quietly. His father was one of the greatest warriors of the Order of Hearts, and once in an hour of battle, he attacked the Supreme Dark Magician. One wave of his staff and father went blind. How can this mirror remove the curse of a blind man without doing anything? Marietta thought. Bastion was now sternly speaking to everyone else, but Reva was drowning in thoughts and couldn't hear them anymore. Why was that little girl over there talking about the mirror? This is a myth. This is true? Perhaps you would like me to leave the palace and go in search of this ancient artifact? Possibly one way out. We need to know more about the magical properties of this mirror. If you want, you can have the pasta prepared for me. I was too suspicious. This is pasta. If it is true, then I can become free. My eyes suddenly opened wide. A gloating grin spread out from her face. In Famille's thoughts, divine. I blissfully drown in contentment. Just a little more and it will explode. I feel the relish of fear. It's extremely tasty, but it seems like you don't even need a tiny bit of salt before you add it. The sound of a stuck glass attracted the respect of those who were absent. Tsiebov Duke Elmendite. Having risen, he looked at all those present at the table. I'll ask you again, Shanovny Master. I have no intention of leaving you. Today's melodious, energetic activity is moving forward, and it is pouring into my inner state. The dog barked at the beginning and greeted the queen on her knees. Quietly, Benicio. Calm down, my little one. Mr. Duke, I feel the need to formulate a way to search for the mysterious mirror. Laugh. Our princess's mysterious illness may be contagious. Cold eyes completely focused on the queen. Zodin Miaz did not flinch at his appearance. In a calm, leveled tone, you will win. I accept all the punishments that amuse you. It is an honor for me. As soon as I know about this miracle artifact, I will definitely get it for you. The king opened his mouth and could not say anything, while Famela rehearsed in a stormy tone. What does came mean to me? Doesn't your glory obscure your mind? You speak to the queen, and not to a street girl. It's not too late to stop. By calling the queen a street girl? We chully? Leaving the table first at the party in honor of his guest and calling our queen a street girl, what a bastard. His insolence manifested itself even before the blessing. Perhaps this is a mercy? Whisper, in my thoughts. You began to vibrate the energy from those who were away. Take away what you deserve. I don't admire your family dramas. I don't dare to play at your games. Such fun is not for me. The mouth opened up in shock and could not say a word. Rudeness. What a shameless impudence. It was spinning in her head. The valleys were sleeping behind clenched fists, and their eyes were moving away from their work. Same for you. Same for you. It was repeated over and over again at Fameli's woos. Having gone to King Fitzurk, he bowed to you. His gestures and facial expressions expressed simplicity and dignity. The skin is polished to perfection. Please, my glorious king, I don't want to introduce anyone, and I ask you to leave the room unless I feel bad for myself. The king's denunciation has changed. Having washed the wine with a laugh. I'll understand you, it's okay. The whole worldly conversation is saturated with a subtle humor that will always make everyone wise. Your reputation cannot be damaged for such trivial reasons. In a sing-song manner, your words were interpreted incorrectly because you were more than likely to fire. A grin spread across his face. Yes, my king, your words calmed my mind and soul. So yes, it's less hot. After a pause, continue. I hope it won't be impudence to cheat on you. Could Princess Revelin accompany me? An electrical discharge struck her body. Ideas flashed through my head frame by frame. Greenhouse, Dano, addiction, licorice is missing. Elmendite? Vona turned around sharply and marveled at him. The skein and hair harmoniously followed the turn of the head. There was a long pause. Movchanka. Bastian turned his gaze towards Revelin. He marveled at her in amazement, and then washed away. Come, be kind, and respect our guest, little sister. She looked calm and serene, and a little blush appeared on her cheeks. With a slight nod of her head, she demonstrated the sign of good luck. The stench of the stench spread through the garden and was accompanied by absolute silence. No one wants to start Razmuva first. Quietly, the stench left the garden alleys, and when they reached the entrance to the palace, their breath became dull. It was necessary for the princess to sit up under the cloth so that she would not be bothered to go to the gatherings. Zaishovshi Ufei von mumbled. A sharp roar and their valleys opened. Without seeming to do anything, she walked forward. Thank you for your respect. I gave it myself. I hope you will know the exit and still need to accompany you. Vin moved. His voice has become unspeakable and a little hoarse. What did you want to tell me? Having washed the wine. Revelin paused, but said nothing. Nevzitse bov vin? Have I shared my body with my enemy? Wanting to look harmless and calm, fire was burning in the middle of it. Turning sharply into a mocking timbre of her voice, she said, So I want to be with you, my warrior? Why does Duke Elmendite want to give up all his love? Laugh. Sometimes the rules of life are not followed. Invisibility. After these words, you won't leave without turning around. Fitzurk was dumbfounded, and his mouth dropped open. In the wide, flattened eyes of the third, the image of Revelin seemed distant from her skin. He wrinkled his forehead and raised his eyes to the mountain as if he were wondering. Half of my hair appeared from the field of his dawn. Dumki, I can figure it out myself. Everyone needs everything, but what is unknown? This is such a bad dream, and I'll wake up soon. I have already lost my mind if I were this stranger. Well, the artifact is found in the western lands. A charming mirror. Tsikavo. I finally need to know him. Otherwise, after Papa's arrival, everything will come to light, and my hiding place will become clear to everyone. Vona nervously clasped her hands in front of her breasts, lost in thought. Images were poured before my eyes. A slight wisp of warmth passed down my back, reaching down to my lower back. The stitch burned and spread out from the sides of the thighs, rising to the stomach. It became warm between my legs. Vaughn lightly touched the burning place between her legs. Who is this? She whispered. Obviously, it's not Tristan. I thought there. What do you care about in your peace of mind? I guessed some words. No, it's not at all. Destruction, swearing. It's not Vin. There was no need to behave rudely towards him, without merit. Once it's broken, it can't be changed. A man appeared in the shadows to stand in front of his eyes. Yogo image bov rosmidum. It was impossible to look at who it was. Revelin tried her best to guess any particularity, but everything was maroon. The eyes of the shadow began to glow, and the stench was of a gray color. Vitzurk. Vidjahu, she covered her mouth with a blindfold. Vitzurk is bad. It's so bad there. It's just terrible. I thought there. Why bother? Vaughn forcefully pressed her ostentatious finger to the hollow under her nose. No. I have mercy, without a doubt. I could feel my heart beating in the closets. Watch out, princess. I felt a voice behind me. Tristan. Then the bell rang in her head. The Swedes could be smelled behind us. Watch out, princess. I sensed a calling there, buzzed. The king has given orders to assign a guard to you in connection with your illness, having chewed the wine. But I would like to especially check back with you that everything is fine with you. Turning around, she glanced at the new man with her torn eyes and said goodbye. What else do you want from me? Why did I say, you? She thought. In what way can the guard help me, Tristan? When will I become evil again, and will you lie to me with your skills in combat? I am depriving the Vicon of an order, no more. Your safety is our direct responsibility. Why are you reacting so aggressively? The rest of the time, you spend time seeing all those who are absent and your relatives. Your brother praises you and tries his best to help you. A mask came out of her face, and then a mask appeared in her eyes. Having said nothing, she turned around and left. I'm tired of your turbocharge. Her voice sounded. Tristan did not come up. He quickly caught up with her and stood in front of her. I'll ask you again for being annoying if you don't mind listening to me. Your brother loves you and wants to kidnap you. It's true, tell me. You wanted to continue, but she interrupted him on the line. It's none of your business how I'm dating my brother. Pack your burdens, and no one can ask for more from you. The voice will be tired and restless. I smelled some croaks. I need to talk to you. A voice sounded. Tisibov, Duke Elmendite. With a singing move, he crawled up to them. His hands were sharp, which indicated the tension in his body. The fists are tightly clenched, and the faces are trembling slightly. The skin of my body was tense. Having looked at Tristan's eyes, they began to sound a little. Why are you bothering here? Thinking about it. He grimaced ostentatiously and quickened his pace. The cape wrapped around my left leg, after which he nervously threw his hand to his side. And what are you forgetting here, show-off? Your mood is about those that we can immediately find out who is stealing from us. Tristan laughed with satisfaction. Blaming the magicians alone. Who has the power? God? To the devil? What kind of villain could have stolen the sacred sword? She turned around sharply, and in front of her eyes stood the image of a shadow with gray eyes. The silhouette became clearer, the confusion disappeared, and now it was clearly visible who it was. In the face of her restless thoughts, Reva shuddered, and behind her everything started to bake. Elmondite. All these nights with her. Ladies, you look relieved. Do you feel better? If you have no desire to drink with him, tell me. I believe this is food. Tristan began to feel a sense of hope. The Duke looks nervous, and you wonder why you want to talk to him. There was a pause in the air. Everyone was muttering, and it was almost as if the Duke was out of his depth. The devilish brand is damned. Matusia is a stratum. These thoughts burst out from the middle. What is it timid? Fatecti? Lose it. A charming mirror. There's only one way you can change the course of action. The answer came to her. Run! Get in! Alvona lost her money. Non-destructive. Fear chained her body in a chiton and did not let her go. The gray eyes stared into her before the azure of the hut, which with a tight grip buried the victim. Nothing is of little importance. Everything was wheezing. Now everything is being discovered, and I am losing my life as my mother. I thought there. Unfortunately, you won't see me again. Pope Dansky emits dark energy. At the end of the day, there is no way out for me. The only thing left to do is to calmly watch for death. The valleys were wet, and she wiped them off on the cloth. The details of that night are frame-by-frame major in her information. She kisses him tenderly and brushes his hair. It's very important that they begin to stream for a kiss and sigh. In a moment of passion, Ven squeezes her fingers on her waist and feels a sense of satisfaction in Revelin's chest. I spent the night with my sworn enemy and son killing my mother. Who am I after? Is it a damn girl or a damned slave? Vona guessed how to brush her hair and kiss her tenderly. In view of these thoughts, my head became confused and she sighed nervously. The mirror is one way out. Suspicious type, Tristan thought. Vin is not at all similar to the warrior I feel about. Too tendy, like on me. You can easily contact him if there is no such need. Vinishivak of Dark Magicians. I am not a dark magician, but a member of the Order of Hearts. A sword, not a staff, speaks for me. This day will never end. It sounded in my thoughts. Why are they so tense? There is such hostility between them to immediately hit a flashlight. The eyes opened wide and the lips opened. Tristan knows about that crazy woman. As a sign of Zakist, she crossed her arms in front of her breasts. There are a lot of random escapes between them. The Vusts grimaced with extreme dissatisfaction. This tells me that it's just the cob of Grease. This type is careless. What does it have in common with the princess? Yesterday's nothing, as she said. Gods appeared before my eyes. His voice sounded like a jingle in his thoughts. Listen to me with respect, Sir Jayard. If you are a capable gentleman and man, you would know that not everything that is gifted needs to be victorious. Not everything that is given to you is meant for you. I'm quick to say a few words. You are a Nahab and a rude man, Tristan. Give you everything, Vona said. The right eye fell asleep, but soon I lost my sense of prosperity. Not everything that is given to you is intended for you. I was spinning in my thoughts again and again. Then the stinks came out. The princess and this show-off at the same time? It turned over in the middle of Tristan. Bill, Ogita. Everything became one goal. My heart began to beat faster and seemed to be squeezing even more intensely after the skin shock. Turning around, they began to collapse, but there was no sound. How will you be happy with him? Pause. I'll step up. In front of Yogo Ochima, Vinnik is the image of a princess. Their eyes were wide open, and their mouths opened in the air. The ruffled hair fell chaotically on her left shoulder. That's a hell of a lot of money. Krasunya. Thinking about it. They almost rushed at him and clenched his fist nervously. This anxiety was previously transmitted to some unknown energy spectrum. Lose everything in the dungeon. I Obitsyavi, Al Yak streamed to myself. Nevzi, don't you understand who he is? Heavily turbocharged. This could have been a mercy. It's a wonderful thing to spend the rest of the time with the princess. Why didn't you get rid of your weakness? Reputation. The prestige of the princess is at stake, and everything lies with me. The mouth opened up as a result of the swelling. Revelin wants to lose everything in the dungeon, so there could be no mercy. Doomki. What's wrong with me? Why am I so eager to give myself up to the life of nobles? Either way, I'm not her equal. Who am I? Person of the Red Order. Stupidity. Please don't get too caught up in my candidacy for the bastard. As it turned out, the boy was highly emotional for the sword duel. Be happy, Princess Revelin. I won't respect you. Squeezing his heart, his whole body tensed up at the images that appeared before his eyes. Dodik, kisses, Stogan. Buzz, you are a red face. You must be strong in body and soul. Your well-being will be acceptable to me. I wish you nothing but good. Al Yaksho, this departure, I hope to form you into a rank. The tendons strained as the strings tightened and the steel fist clenched. I'm fucking Yogo. I swear. I can imagine life without your niceness, princess, but none and nothing can imagine you until I'm alive. The large inner light of the ore-haired beauty beckons with its mystery. Vaughn was the result of a non-streaming fire and weak tendency. It was impossible to transfer the onset, which created the effect of lack of awareness. Maiden of succubus. I'm kicking it! Volav, squealing his voice in the middle of the young man. Vaughn was quiet all hour. I have the opportunity to show my cunningness, but I won't. Why? Singing and restive character stood aside from me. Is it my fault? What is the answer to this diet? I'm cursed. Thinking about it, the night after the ball. I am either a vampire or a psychopath in the jokes of the victim. These days' adventures will not end well. The rest of the time, Sir Jayard suffered from insomnia. For the third night in a row, he couldn't sleep, and he was worried. I felt the cries and looked around at the noise. The stranger's shadow smoothly collapsed towards the princess's chambers. The girl's body flowed in his hands. The stranger gently carried her in her arms, periodically looking around fearfully, otherwise afraid that she might mark someone. Protect the skin and keep it quiet. He hesitated and wriggled his hands so as not to let her in. Tristan froze and gazed intently at the shadowed images. Having brightened up the new month, it was not too dark. You tensed up and tried your best to observe the hidden action. Nothing is visible. The rapture of gloom blowing in the wind opened the month of the month. Princess. Whisper Vin. With speed, he headed towards the shadows. The muscles are tense. They live tautly. Without any glance or seeming words, you are approaching the stranger. Stay! Stop! I told you! Who are you and why are you doing business here? What was going on with Princess Revelin? Find the wine quickly. The know-nothing looked around. Tsebov, Duke Vitzerk Elmendite. Having stepped a few more steps, he hesitated, and then shook his head in displeasure and looked around again. His look was calm, and nothing showed any alarm in him. He again moved his hands so that the girl did not slip out of them. I can meet someone for a long time, but fate sent me to you. I hope you haven't been in the greenhouse. If you try to seduce me in this manner, you will regret it. I want the other side of the coin. You are a warrior, and therefore must adhere to the code of honor. Especially since a woman's honor is at stake. You can booty korisnim. Tristana Jayard, meeting you on the territory of the palace at this late hour is a great inconvenience for me. Can't sleep? As I know, tomorrow there will be final training before the battle in the Western lands. A great battle is testing you. It is necessary to save your strength and even place great hopes on you. Be kind. Take care of your rights. Are you a killer of magicians? Then kill these magicians under the sharpening of your combat skills. Why should the princess be held in your arms? Let me explain. Otherwise, you will no longer be able to fight dark magic. What did you do with the princess? Why should you bother me in my arms? Why don't you teach? Off to sleep. I was in a bad mood, and I hoped my little ones would blossom at the greenhouse. I know I'm there. She was without a record, and like a crazy man, I wanted to help her. I'm heading straight to her chambers. Fitzurk glanced at Reveline. Vona snorted quietly. Otherwise, behind the hands of the invisible conductor, Tristan also looked at her. The red-haired beauty sensed their rose and grimaced in her sleep. Then her lips formed a tube like someone she had kissed in her sleep. Mr. Jayard, I have a lot of rot for you. Life is complex, and sometimes it is really impossible to describe in words as people would believe. There are already a lot of evil tongues around us, and who know how to understand our nightly adventures with the princess. If you value her reputation, you will understand me. Could you please carry her to the rest?" Without seeming to do anything, Tristan extended his hands towards him. "I'll understand everything." Having washed the wine. With a light ruffle, Reva's body jumped into the new frame. Having heard a thin voice, she mumbled indistinctly. Elmendite, with his arms folded, turned around and began to walk away. He marveled at her with a twisted look and could not look away. Krasunya, thinking Vin. Then a thought flashed through his mind. And how did the Duke mischief her? It's possible that these destructions are even worse. Revelin, wake up! Vaughn was sleeping. Why is there a real need to bring them quickly to their rest? Dilemma. Having stepped on the floor, the woman sank and looked at her again. Their cheeks were burning before there was a neutral speck in the yard. Vuka and Shia were also red. Revelin hummed again, and half asleep, rubbed her nose with a cowardly grimace. After this one, I gently warmed up to this one. Tristan sighed and began to walk to rest. Then she began to collapse, and the little girl's head threw back. He looked at her. The lips were swollen, and a red lining was visible around them. What's with these bushes? In my thoughts. I'm in the hour. I need to go and show up without noticing anyone. Revelin dreamed of a miraculous garden in which there were more than one Trojan. She ate in the garden and admired the beauty of the pellets. The sun sparkled brightly and sparkled pleasantly. The Trojans began to grow rapidly, and their vine began to wrap around their body. When I tried to wash it, I was afraid that the thorns would spoil it, but there was no stink. She hovered at them with a blissful laugh. "Kiss me," Vaughn said. Seeing her unslept, Jayard's eyes are wide open and frozen. What did she say? Sing, marinate. The princess is ill or tired. The thought said one thing, but the body said something else. He was amazed and amazed at her. Yogo felt uneasy about kissing her and getting a little sick. Inhaling the wine through your nose, you will notice a subtle aroma. What a wonderful smell. After thinking, I have never felt anything like this. This is not similar to Otrutu. It could be better. Having inhaled again through his nose, his eyes closed. The eyes opened, but there was nothing in them. She said in a sleepy voice, "This is our prison. Will you save it?" Looking unsatisfied, Tristan could not understand any words and was dumbfoundedly amazed at her. Vaughn closed her eyes in satisfaction and laughed. "Do you hear me?" The sweet voice of the princess sounded pleased. "There is no one to know about this." She walked around him and tried to kiss him, but he carefully breathed away. In order to prevent the wine from spilling, it gently burns to itself. I fell asleep. Don't boast. I'll take care of the dungeon. When confronted, Viraz was caught in a stupor. What kind of dungeon are we talking about? It won't be long before we find out what she's doing in the car. We might get tagged. Otherwise, a scream sounded in his head. Burnt, she looked back at Fitzurk's face. Fitzurk Ishav at a leisurely pace. The sound of the croaks was almost inaudible. It seemed like he was flying in the wind and not touching the ground. Feeling the need to follow him, he looked around. Shadow, with the girl in her arms, marveled at him. Bring it to rest without noticing anyone, I'm afraid. After thinking about it, let's go ahead. If you're thinking about what I'm thinking about, then I just have to say one thing. What did she know? Ogidna Liudina. There is no way to stink of bestiality. Since you have mischieved the princesses, death awaits you and your motives do not matter. Show off. The scourge has faded. It doesn't seem to fit here. Doubts began to hiss in his head. Since they have intimate relations with the princess, then why does she solemnly greet you? The eyebrows closed sternly. On the next day after this, our relationship with the princess was ambiguous. Save the prison, sounded in your head, Pishav to rest. I understand that you will still feel bad for yourself, but we ultimately need to clarify this with you, Mrs. Revelin. Having washed Fitzurk on the go, you won't borrow too much time and your money. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you alone, without information. She doesn't remember who was with her those nights. Vaughn is attracted to the uniqueness of his company. All to say about those whose departure was speedy due to the weakness of a dry and sick girl. You are a heartless wretch, and you immediately take away what you deserve. I will devour your black heart. Why are you astonished at me as if at an enemy? I haven't done anything nasty. Vin glanced at Tristan. I am so hostile that you follow me. You don't sleep at night and lie silent during the day. You helped me, for which I am generous. And now, it would be miraculous, as if you had known like that night. The father of the Duke gave the wide-open valley to Revelin. Please, sir, show me a little respect. It seems to me that all present understandings are expected. Don't take this as impudence. It's just a necessity. I don't sound like I'm eating, but I'm not cutting off the voltage. Tristan extended his hand, closing the doorway to the princess. Buzz, Mrs. Revelin is not at all humorous and feels bad about herself. Read from her. This no longer looks like I'm just trying to help, but more like blatant impudence. Their eyes narrowed. A rage sank into them. The air smelled of aggression. The muscles of the whole body tensed, but the emotions streamed away. Sir Jayard, be singing. The princesses will not be in any danger. I could have spoiled her before, and would not have harmed anyone. You know it like no one else. Be kind, be streaming and reasonable. Did you spoil me earlier? What does this mean? Vaughn wanted to tidy up her emotions as she heard her mind, but her body was not heard, and her eyes opened wide. Tsia Rozmova licks me. What is expected? I must stop this, otherwise the stinks will kill one another, and my secret place will become clear to everyone. I want! It sounded in her head. Hug, kiss sticks, the heat of your body. That night, I myself was the initiator. Stronger. Those powerful words sounded in my head. The situation is starting to get out of control. Demand unique.Elle. Reveline stood immovable. Otherwise, her whole body was occupied. I won't let you go. Your behavior is starting to bother me. I am a member of the Order of Red, and it is my duty to protect the royal family from anyone who creates trouble. The voice became irritated. Glory to blinding your eyes. Stop it. It's not too late. Your zeal for figurative thoughts is quiet for me. Vin laughed. There is not a drop of reasonableness in your words. It's so hostile that emotions speak for you. I repeat to you once again, if I had the chance to harm the princess, I would have earned it much earlier. With all his appearance, he showed the absence of turbochargedness to the extent that Jayard said, after the action of the Movchanka in Vidpov, You are not serious about the words of the celebrant of the Order of Reds. The voice was tense and sounded like Tristan was hissing rather than speaking. One more time, and I will understand your untidy burrows and the way in which I will give you a better chance of not knowing. Wusta grimaced and her teeth were visible. I'll have to spend money soon, she thought. Warmth began to appear behind her. A slight pulsation turned into a smooth sound as she became confused in her head. She lowered her eyes and sighed heavily. I don't have much chance. Soon I'll die. I hate myself. Hatefully, she picked up the cloth. Very often, children repeat the actions of their fathers, and thus their own lives share a similar share. Since my mother was wasted, that means that I, too, am about to die. Let's go out again. The words of her mother sounded in Reva's head. This Rozmova is starting to make me laugh. Laugh. One wise man, if he tells me that you are trying to read a fool, then you yourself transform into someone else. I'm tired of explaining obvious speeches. I think the reason is different. Why don't I respect my hundred-year-olds? At the hour of their divorce, Revelin constantly marveled at the other side, but, sensing these words, she turned around to them. It's better no matter what, she thought. If the stench doesn't kill one, then it's obligatory to vibrate my dungeon with your mindless behavior. Folks? Who is stealing them? I really don't know. I feel like the stench of both will violate my respects. One at a time, one by one, you'll be stuck in a gourd, and it'll start to feel like a mess. A sly smile appeared on his face. If I don't spend anything, then I will become the same. Sir Tristan, if you won't be so kind, show me to my chambers. Its voice is trembling, and its denunciation is fading. He turned to her and looked at her with a wary gaze. So, my princess, I must abide by all your orders. Stramano nodded his head. As a result of all this, I had a severe headache. I don't dare continue the conversation. You'll make me laugh. An unpleasant knot formed in my throat. Vaughn raised her hand to her chest and began to cackle. It seems to me that it's becoming rotten again. Movola won. The Duke's accusation darkened with anger. He clenched his teeth as his face tensed. It's not over yet. Thinking about it. She plays with me, no differently. He clenched his fist angrily and became friendly. Stinks of Kohansi. Handling her little legs, Revelyn constantly adjusted the floor of the cloth so as not to stumble or fall. The crumbs were moving away. The shadow behind them became harmless and intensely glared straight at the protracted one. Otherwise, sensing aggression, the brand fell on our necks. Revelyn clearly felt herself and did not have any sick symptoms. This mercy will follow me throughout my life as I see it. It sounded in her head. Sometimes it is not possible to change the progress. Everything is decided for us, the magical power of explanation for which does not exist. The furnishings are formed in such an order that our affairs cannot change anything. Enchantment is one of the storage parts of our life. I could see someone this night without a doubt, except the Duke of Elmondite. What is the fate? What is the curse? Who can give me evidence for this question? I'm lost. I would like to become a little bird and fly far, far away, but now a wing will accompany me. How many times have you been spared, Sir Jayard? I could deal with you with just one touch of my finger, but the princess's love is my law. I hope that we will be able to join forces with you, great warrior of the Red Order. The voices died down, without anyone saying a word. With a peaceful walk, Tristan and Revelyn began to move away from the Duke. There was a conflict of strangulations, but the watcher who was watching over them was not satisfied. Closed eyes stared at the trio. What is there between them? Having wondered about the food, an unknown spy. No, I won't lose anyone like that. Missed in the Duma. Fitzurk turned around sharply and said, Revelyn, please listen to me. I want to say that you are even more important, especially. If you don't hesitate and don't talk to me, then I'll shout it. I'll stop. I'm very tired. This is a damned brand. The water cooks through my brushes. The voice interrupted my thoughts. I need to tell you that it's even more important. Especially. I'll shout it. After these words, she muttered. The cold passed through her body. He was amazed at them, waiting for confirmation. She murmured, and her heart began to flutter like a little bird. Nadia lived in his heart. If I don't say this, I won't be able to calm down until the end of my days. I'll scream. It was repeated again and again in this news. There is no way out. God's God. Images flowed one after another. Hugs, kisses, the heat of your body. Everything was mixed up, and the memories of the past faded. Since these words have already been said to her for a long time, I will shout that you are not listening to me. The image of a little boy stood in front of her eyes. Levelyn. Having said Vin not with a firm re-imia. I've grown a baby for you. Do you like flowers? Levelyn, I want to tell you to be more important. Especially. I remember these words. A panicked fear gripped her, and, as a result of these feelings, her eyebrows rose and her eyes widened. I've been mulling for an hour. Mysteries were spinning in my head one after another, but there was no sense in them. It didn't work. My memory was completely erased. Tristan looked around and said angrily, Well, what kind of inappropriateness is this? Why don't you teach? The princess's figure is adored by your roses. If you do not blame this bacchanalia, you will be punished under all the laws of the kingdom of Bringant. Why isn't Sir Jayard? It would be so wonderful. You will be my beloved and ready to give up your life for me. Would you like me to choose this night? The brand took care of me, not me. Really bad. Tristan's allegiance is better suited to my mother. Would you be so kind as to give me an explanation in favor of your jealousy? What's going on with you? There was a smile on her face. Are you sick? It's not at all like the legendary hero who is glorified in our lands. That smile broke my heart. Rozpak strangled him with a tight tourniquet. His shoulders sagged. The divine spirits appeared before my eyes. You are aloof from reality and feel nothing about it. Enchantment is one of the storage parts of human life. Everything turned upside down in my soul. The feeling of anxiety set in, and I felt a slight nervous tremor. Streaming his emotions again without singing in a voice. Recently. My throat felt sore and I coughed slightly. You and I were hanging out in the greenhouse. I want to discuss this. Revelyn shuddered after these words. Gods appeared before my eyes. The first kiss gave the cob to the shoot. The first crumb, like a bum, was crushed by her, and not by the Duke. The blood began to rise and the stench began to burn. Realizing that the situation was turning against her again, she said in a dissatisfied voice, "I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hurt you, and I'm afraid of you. Why are you repeating me without a trace? I can feel my head getting confused again." Vona cackled. "Look at me!" She turned around sharply, and there was a sound of wind whistling near her. "Sir Jayard, please don't get up. I may need your help." With its short wisps, it went straight to the back of the chambers. Tristan dutifully followed her, either at once or not at all. Thinking about it. I'm trying to get excited about these thoughts. If I missed it, and now I'm doing it for nothing. Llewellyn, I've grown a baby for you. Do you like kaviti? The weather rushed past. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Inactivity leads to collapse. No one can tell you that you won't supply food. No one will sense that you are going to move, either at once or not at all. He opened his eyes and washed. "Revelin Raven, I am Duke Visturk Elmondite, as I know as the commander-in-chief of the neighboring lands. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I love you, and I want to get engaged to you so that we can get together officially." Vona did not look around, but tensely heard the word loudly in her skin. The eyes are wide open, the lips are open. Goosebumps ran all over my body. The heat spread throughout every face, and in 1 second the cheeks were reddened. What have I gained? God's God! Zarachini? We can't talk about any kind of guarantees. It's a mercy. It was spinning in her head, but she was moaning. Treba shvidko shows vigadati. Vtekti. You need to run without looking back. Alakudi, lost lands. Perhaps I'll find out my routine there. I've bitten her, having quickly become the hopeless camp of a poor girl. I can't have any mercy. This departure means that everything is allowed to you. The police tensed and trembled at his face. These nights, I try to earn those that my heart suggested to me. Now it is necessary, and the prestige of the princess will be destroyed by this approaching hypocrite. Kvisturk felt the unbearable desire to tear Tristan to pieces. If you promote, if you want one word, if you rub in again and begin to respect me, I will rip out your rotten heart. I don't know how to judge me. I won't allow anyone to stand on my path. You're blind. Nothing makes sense. What kind of Zarachini are you talking about? Cursed are the princess and the hero who will soon turn into gods? What kind of nonsense? It began to feel unbearable to cut in the corners of my eyes, and a dry ball formed in my throat. I won't pay! I won't pay! I thought there. Having gathered her strength, she licked her dry lips and washed. Sir Jayard, I wonder what you can do. The situation is getting out of control. Some people have incompletely traced the situation of the mindless and meaningless people. Be kind. Leave us alone. Don't brag. Everything will be fine. Princess, are you singing? I ask you to kindly comprehend the seriousness of the situation. With every word, we speak Gushnish. What a careless person. Don't worry about it. He follows you day and night, no matter what. Sometimes fame clouds the minds of heroes. If you don't mind, I'll lose order. People need to be judged by their facts, not by their words. Having rumbled Visturk, there is no reason to blame me for not being timid. Your words are nothing more than a guess, nothing more. This is different, but different. You don't need to stream what you need. I want to drink your spirits, because I can already feel your words, and the stench means nothing without action, Sir Jayard. Tristan leaned his body forward to sing a loud voice. Yogo Zupanila Revelin. Guys, calm down, be gentle. Her voice sounded playful and mocking. There is such hostility that a flash of fire will hit you at once, and this discharge will kill all three of us. What do you want? For the less intelligent, your passion. She chuckled. People are always trying to find food using brute force. Nature created you strong and aggressive so that you would protect us women. Get your head around it. Mr. Jayard, kindly leave us alone. There is no need to follow me. If you have any doubts about my safety, Tristan, then be so kind and send them away. There is no need to provoke military actions on the territory of the glorious Bringant Palace. The eyes sounded, and a satisfied chuckle appeared on her face. Your combat skills are needed for the protection of our lands, and not for their destruction. Thank you for your understanding. He listened to them respectfully, and made a humble nod without seeming words. Yes, sir. I've made you understand. In the middle of the city, there is a seething volcano of emotions. Well, it's mutual. Thinking about it. So as not to show off his praise, the commander clenched the fist of his right hand. I took yours, Mr. Duke. Follow me if you haven't changed your mind yet. We believe that our food is in the place where it all began. To express her frustration, she ostentatiously threw up her hair with her hand. I wonder if you still remember where this happened. Don't worry, please. The greenhouse is the same place, and there is no one there. Place of calm revelin, Yi Shovanka. Sometimes a gardener named Bobby appears on the territory of the greenhouse, but he knows well that there is no such thing as a princess here. In this place, the Stinks will be alone. She croaked at a singing pace without looking back. It's a wonderful place. What's wrong? Sometimes I realize that behind the walls of this beautiful garden, there is nothing. This heavenly place is hidden from the eyes of others. Fitzurk, walking behind her, glanced around furtively at someone who was watching them. Ladies, for me, the nourishment of romance and creativity is too complex. I don't quite understand what you mean by respect. I'll be with you. I won't say anything else. His voice faded a little, and he reflexively pulled up the tail of his shirt. It seemed like she was strangling Yogo, otherwise Zashmorg. Their gaze cut through him completely. It's wonderful to be with you. Her voice sounded, Where have your military spirit and directness gone? You must be more decisive. Do not be afraid of me. What did you want to ask me? Vona blinked playfully at the Yuma. With a side glance, the Duke noticed a rock and deliberately looked straight at it. Tristan is standing behind the window. A glance in the direction of the back of the body, but his presence was still felt. Why should you go to training for the ranks of the Red Order? Eavesdrop? Thinking about it, gentlemen, those nights you tried to save everything in the dungeon, and that's why I couldn't tell you earlier. After everything that has happened between us, I sincerely ask you to enlist your help. Your sweetness was an unsatisfaction for me, a welcome unsatisfaction. There was a roar of laughter at the interview. In case of lack of sleep, your mouth is open. What was in the middle of it had shrunk to the size of a small hole and had become crumbly and almost indistinguishable. Tse bula yogo nadia. Laughter echoed under the greenhouse's ceiling, tormented by his depression. Zvinko laughed, and Revelin coughed. Tears rolled down from her right eye, and she waved her hand without a rush. Do you want to say it earlier? Laugh. After all that happened between us? It's ostentatiously gigantic. What happened between us? Stosunki? Kohanya? It only took one night. This won't happen again. The words rang echoingly in the news. Just one night. Vona said that there is only one thing left. He stood with his mouth open due to paralysis and feeling. Viniclo was forced to give up and sing, but his body was not heard, and he lost his place. Zvinko, smiling, covered her mouth with her hand. Otherwise, she was tempted to stream. There is no need to get carried away with hopes, Mr. Duke. There will be no further damage. Vaughn stammered and marveled at him like a beast. Why are you saying, "Oh, great killer of magicians"? She chuckled. He had previously marveled at her with a broken look. The words caught on the lips. The dry ball irritated my throat unpleasantly. I want to die. Vaughn doesn't fry. He was not at all worried by those who had sent him to the wrong place. There was anxiety elsewhere. The hope for reciprocity faded in his heart. Have I gone too far? Satisfaction and joy no longer plagued her mind. It is very common for madmen to die in a fit of jealousy or frustration, to act impulsively and recklessly. Yogo cold look. I thought there. Vin is a madman. He would immediately attack me and strangle me with his bare hands. Why do you care about me? Damn, the brand is ruining my life. Why me? Damn hunting season. That day I could have been busy doing whatever I wanted, but I wanted to go for a walk. Let's go out again, whispers to the mother, sounding in her voice. De Tristan? Axis who can lie to me. A trustworthy and loyal warrior is the only way out. I have been dreaming all my life if I get even with my mother's murderers. The Axis has arrived. You stand before me, weak and helpless. Just one word from me and Tristan is gone. Chops Armatia without hesitation. What if the Duke emerges stronger? The voice of Yogo is tremtive, but it's not even Yogo's bent. There was no hope of being polite. Hope for reciprocity. Was it just one more night? Having asked for wine. Doesn't mean anything to you? Don't play with me and tell me. You accept my proposition or not? Just know, I won't give up. Nikolai! You don't have many chances. Can you hear me? greedy for a chance. We are different people, and nothing unites us. I don't appreciate your niceness, and you don't bother anyone who has misunderstood my heart. Vona spoke in such a timbre as se bula kumedna I vesela rozmova. Descend to the ground, because you are so hostile that you must have flown high to the skies. Vona laughed hysterically, clutching her hair. Wisterk looked at everything that was said and stood dumbfounded and dumbfounded. The princess and the hero of God! How romantic! Our love story will be sung and sung, don't you think so? Laugh arrogantly at him. Please be respectful, since you have no idea that I am afraid of discord this night. Then you know, I hate you. There is no way to tarnish my reputation, because, as you know, there are no shades of black. Now she spoke loudly and firmly. Be so kind and take care of me. This will be the most welcome gift for me. I sewed with a fool, otherwise a naive child. Vaughn doesn't sense anything before me, absolutely nothing. The heart was pulsating in the closets. The valleys were sleeping. If the mountain doesn't come to me, then I will go to it myself. A woman's delicacy must be conquered, and I won't give up. The words are spoken alone, but the body is completely different, and it shows the duality of the sentence. There was a hint of tenderness in the look. You will be mine. Thinking about it, Revelin smelled a subtle aroma of concern. The lips closed, and laughter no longer fell on their face. You have to stand up and not give up. This look says more than words. For God's sake! Matusia, why don't you care about me now? I'm no longer needed. Realizing that the dialogue would smoothly turn into polemic, the princess spoke in a calm and level tone. Life is complicated. Movila won. However, we cannot reject those we crave. Sometimes our dreams conflict with the thoughts of others. You have had mercy, Mr. Elmondite, and there is nothing fatal in that. Reconcile and move on. An hour passed unnoticed, and the orange light of the sunny changes as the sunset filled the greenhouse. The day smoothly flowed into the night. The petals of the flowers are being stolen from the night huts, hovering around the tight navel. The singing of the birds was replaced by the hooting of the owl, which had otherwise informed about the beginning of the waterfall. The aristocrat stood undisturbed. The decision came by itself. I won't give up! The hand turned into a fist. Doubts dissipated, and they were replaced by purposefulness. He smoothly walked up to her and extended his hand. Revelin stood still enchanted, inviolably. He looked down at this fire ore. What is expected, she thought. De Tristan? The Duke will tell me now. When she tried to wash, she closed her eyes in fear, but having realized that she gently took the skein from her hair, she reflexively squealed it. The Duke gruffly greeted her. Her mouth was open, and her eyes were round and looked like two saucers. Why are you roguish? Suck it up! I wanted to say no, but no words came out. Whisperk kissed her hair. The unsatisfied ones became mute, and their body trembled. In every way she showed panicky fear. I'll scream, Vaughn said. He raised his eyes to her and washed. See you soon, Kohan. You don't know yet, but you will be mine. I love it. His mouth was covered with strands of ore hair, but it was good to see in his eyes that he would laugh. I would never have been the way I am if I had given up easily. You are right, princess. Life is complicated. You don't understand who you're contacting. Emotions have clouded my mind. So, what prompts you to do such things? Are there no other motives besides sympathy? The pasta can be carefully planned. After these thoughts, I felt a slight pulsation. Success and victory exchanged places. Revelin chewed the Duke with a tense look, leaving the place at a leisurely pace for the duel of two hearts. Then this is a viklik for you, not a vidmova, I thought there. I'm happy to take yoga. Let us sing, and sing not for life, but for death. The right eye shuddered. You can be a master of sword fighting, you can be a heroic mage killer, or a vicarist's kana of other weapons. Laugh. Tristan, missed in the Duma. He was watching us. Tsikavo, why did you feel our Rozmova? Even if I am at my mercy, I will be victorious. Let's go out again. The mother's words sounded. Lost in thought, she shaved her head a little, so that the skein of her hair touched her cheek. Bridota! She hissed menacingly and nervously threw him in the back. You need to cut him off. She turned around sharply, and having lifted the bottom of the cloth, sank into the draught of the greenhouse. The birds happily buzzed the morning. A new day appeared due to the acquisition. Here, one could feel the bell of the local church, interrupting the booming sound of the fanfare. At the windows of the palace, shadows periodically appeared, and the servants opened the curtains, allowing sleepy beds into the premises. Revelyn sat in front of the mirror and languidly combed her hair. Swaying in a slight drowsiness, their thoughts two-facedly replaced each other. "Father, I won't give up," I said. "What kind of hero are you who don't know that sometimes it is necessary to step up in order to overcome the battle?" "Wonderful gesture on your side. Kiss my hair. What do you want to say to them? Brand! Vin knows about the brand. Famella is your darling." Vaughn deliberately persuaded her brother to ask Elmendite for the supper, and in order to get me out of jealousy, the queen directly kissed me. What a shame. You need to cut the damn thing. Behind my back, I felt the noise of short, hasty sounds. I wanted to go straight to my chambers. I'm sure it's not Tristan who decided to unceremoniously please his presence right from the start, she thought. "Madame Raven, have you lost your mind yet? Allow me to come in." A familiar woman's voice sounded. The doors opened with a bang as the lining moved. "Oh, Vibakta," said Marietta from behind. "Sir, I have something new for you." Vaughn breathed heavily. "Calm down, Marie. Don't hurry. What happened?" The voice was cold. "Duke, Lady, Duke of Elmendite. Vin Pobitsia." She began to chatter again and sigh gravely. Revelyn looked around and marveled at her in amazement. What was the matter? Who gave what to whom? The Duke of Elmendite officially declared that he would encourage and gossip about you. The servant's voice sounded deep and filled with welcoming compliments. Is the princess getting married? Ripka got caught in the gag, she thought, and laughed evilly. Well then, let it be so. Let us consider what your first move was, Mr. Elmendite. My advice is not to bother you for long. It's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. A voice sounded behind her. Sir, he's killing you. It's so wonderful, it's so wonderful. The merry march is once again upon the walls of the palace. Ladies, don't take my food as impudence, but tell me kindly, do you and the Duke have romantic affairs? Vona fascinatedly folded her hands in front of her breasts in a hypnotic manner. And without specifying what the motive of your action is, Marietta? There was a malicious chuckle on her face. Do you hear me? Yes, sir. What did you feed me? I say, without explaining the motive of my actions? Sir, isn't it obvious? He's killing you, and I am so excited to enlist you. Mary's emotions overcame her, and she closed her eyes in silence. Whoa! Revelyn's thoughts grew dark. Now everyone will see us in despair as coquins. What should we do? Marietta, bring me the knives. The servant did not hear it and squealed as it was said. Reva grimaced, and raising her image in the mirror, shuddered a little. Tim heard Mary's voice behind him for an hour. This is the cob of miracle fruits. They will talk about you and have fun later. How wonderful, how wonderful. To say that he is possible and self-sufficient. And what a beauty he is. Princess, you are so blessed. This is great joy for us. I really love fun. Creation of a new family. All the best you can do for a woman. Vaughn closed her eyes and froze, bubonic again and again. Marietto, stop dying and listen to what I'm telling you. Bring me some knives. Shvitko, I said. Knives? The servant whispered. Their eyes were rounded, and their faces stretched out with a look of puffiness. I'll ask again, lady. Did I smell you correctly? Did you say knives? Are you all right, sir? V, sing-song, disrespectfully heard me. I say, Duke of Elmond. Revelyn interrupted her in the final words. Marietto, she screamed. Bring me the damn knives, she hissed. I felt good about what you told me. Everything made sense to me. Her voice sounded hysterical. And right now, I don't want to talk more about this topic. If you turn around to this point one more time, you will receive 100 blows of the whip in the form of punishment. Bring me some knives. The muscles of my whole body tensed up, and with force I squeezed the comb in my hand. Marietta stood immovable. Didn't you notice what I said? Shvitko, obey my order. Revelyn slammed her handle hard on the table. She was overcome by fierceness. You will be sorry for your work, sir. In front of my eyes, I placed my image with a pleased expression, revealing it. Soon your sweetness will cut your heart into little rolling pins, and I hope this will be a great lesson for you. 1 is 0 for your sake. At the mirrored mirror, there are seats of succubus guns. Rankoff's novelty affected Revelin's mood. Having dressed herself, she sat down with her brother at the living room table. The weather is really nice today. Don't you care so much, little sister? Vona hummed. Bastian marveled at her with a fixed gaze, waiting for confirmation. The princess's thoughtful and empty gaze did not alarm Bastian, so as not to escalate the situation by washing. What a welcoming aroma. I guess this is your favorite tea, sister. I won't have mercy? She mumbled and made a small basket. Tea with ginger. I remember your crush, isn't it? Without even saying a word, she took the teapot and poured a hot drink for herself. I'm not in a good humor today, brother. The hand froze a little, and I felt the clatter of the saucer. The rest of the time, I am choked by apathy. I'm sure of myself. She sighed sadly. His gaze became tense. I bought you to say. Your confusion is passed on to me. I really want to help you, but I don't know how. I hope that my nutrition will not strengthen the negativity that has accumulated in you. Isn't this related to Duke Elmondite's outfit? You know, but you'll still ask. So, the situation with the Duke is unacceptable to me. It will piss me off, not just make me laugh. With every word, confusion was gradually replaced by irritation. Who does she blame herself for? Why me? Don't you understand that we are people from different worlds? Vaughn, annoyed, threw the filijanka on the saucer, causing them to clatter. With a sharp rough, she clasped her hands under the table and began nervously running her fingers through the cloth. There was a pause in the air. Bastian opened his mouth to say what to say, but interrupted the booming rumble of the fanfare outside the window. Vin looked around. The sound died down, and the glance at Revelin returned. Vaughn sat with her eyes downcast. His gaze also dropped down, repeating after her. It's all our guest's fault. Having washed the wine. You don't need to react so aggressively, sister. Listen to me. Vona raised her eyes. Without a doubt, Duke Elmondite is a known and possible person who cannot be seen. Well, you have one thing to understand. No one and no one can stop my sister from doing what she doesn't want. The voice sounded firm. No one and no one. Do you hear me? The rest of the decision will be yours. What's on your mind? If I'm good enough, then won't I be against our hundreds? Vaughn opened her eyes wide in excitement. Our alliance with the Duke can be beneficial for the purposes of the kingdom. The axis is coming up. Vona guessed Fitzurk's words. Life is complicated. Then, sensing these thoughts, the king chattered quickly. I will always be at your side. I'm in love. In her eyes, there is a comical image of a person who has lost herself in a hopeless situation, but is trying her best to straighten out her situation. Vona chuckled. You are even more cunning if you get nervous, Vaughn said. Don't boast, my brother. I am emotional, but not weak. It took me a long time to bring my experiences into harmony. I can handle it. And in fact, as before, I plan to join a women's monastery. Women's monastery? Whisper Vin. I hope with all my heart that your thoughts will change so much. Monastery is not the best place for such a tendentious and emotional girl like you. In my opinion, you hastily accept such a complex decision and how to negotiate between the monastery and the Duke, or better yet. Their deep eyes became wide due to swelling. When she heard it, she wanted to get up and sing and say no apparent words, but she started to run. Having finished her time, she washed away. I appreciate your thought, brother, and I will take your words into consideration, even if you are kind to me in the future. It's good for you to create intrigue. Vin chuckled. Your mastery can be a showstopper for the actors in the theater. Don't you want to get involved in theatrical activities? Laugh. It's unreasonable not to have such a rare talent, little sister. The sun rose due to the pain and illuminated the area of the palace. Dormice bunnies playfully appeared on the windows. Marietta! She called the maid Reveline. Then, with a wave of the magic wand, Marie appeared at the door. Did you call me, sir? So, cover up, be kind, Guardy. Sometimes I don't understand myself. I hate winter and everything connected with it, but sometimes the sleepy changes must be unpleasantly pressing on my eyes. First of all, you have to make sacrifices. There is no ideal in this world. Are you marveling at me? Isn't that right? The princess caught and marveled at the king with a wondrous laugh in his appearance. "Sister, your mood swings frighten me. You are either cheerful or sad. It's so impressive that in the middle, you have a dozen features that periodically replace one with the other." Vona hummed. Without seeming to say any words, she began to laugh. "Dzvinko and fun. You have such a brilliant, worldly look, brother." Laugh. The doors opened and a servant entered the room. "Did you call me?" She asked for it. The angry king looked at her and said, "No," without clicking on anyone. Revi laughed even louder. Vin raised his hand to his face, otherwise trying to hide behind it. "What do I have to say? Did I get lost at tea time? What's funny? I don't understand. Tibentisish me. Explain, please. Why are you laughing?" Vaughn translated them and confirmed them. "No, brother. There is nothing on your face. I wanted to thank you for your respect to me. You always encourage me and try to lift my spirits. Sometimes it comes out in you, and sometimes it doesn't." An unpleasant knot formed in her throat, and she hunched her throat to clear her throat. "You are extremely respectful of details and always know what is needed. Like those Trojans that you secretly give to me. It is clear that your gift is being celebrated not with bouquets, but with whole flowers. You will always be a maximalist and a giant maniac. It's fun to laugh. Gigantomaniac. Did the children sense this word? If you voice him in public, then the henchmen will wear a cap on him, as is fitting for me." The Stinks began to laugh in unison, and the laughter of the twinkling moons scattered under the ceiling of the tea room. "Check it out! What are the Trojans talking about?" Bastian began to fumble, and his gaze became stern. Revi could not stop and laughed without feeling anything. The king looked sideways in thought. He tried to put together all the purchases and sat tensely in thought. Revelin said after a pause, "It's time for us to get going, because soon all the servants will join in our laughter. You will make me happy again, brother. It's a miracle morning today. I really appreciate you for this." There was a smile on her face. In the distance, one could feel the rustle of horses, followed by the ringing sound of pedals on the brook. "You can hear, brother, serenely Sir Jayard arriving with a military signal to you. It's already time. See you soon. I love you." "What Trojans are you talking about?" "Tsukavo, what's wrong with you?" It doesn't matter. I want my sister to feel good." Revelin looked around and waved her hand. Bastian chuckled widely and waved at her. The Stench had been close since early childhood and had always encouraged each other. Regardless of their relationship with their mother, they were united in mutual love one by one. He looked away and laughed happily. "I hope everything will be fine, my dear sister. If it is not Bastian who gives orders to these Trojans, then who? Every day, there are more and more mysteries. I thought there." Over the weekend, the rustling of the horses was felt again, and they were buried from the meadow. Vona grimaced. The brand started to fade and began to shake slightly. My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a dog barking. "Benicio!" It sounded in Svedomosti. "This little dog can't booty himself. Well, Famela is all right here." The princess reflexively waved her curl of hair with her hand. Gesture of nervousness. "Golovny, don't boast! Try it in your hands! I thought there." Looking around, the first thing she saw was Benicio's lewd pussy. The Pomeranian Spitz looked at her, and it was clear that she was a native. Very often, pets are similar to their owners, and this is the case when the similarity is almost identical. Famela ate with her lewd friends up and down the corridor. Those cold eyes glared at Revi. The queen's skin echoed loudly against the walls. It was time for reveling to settle down, and everything was sorted out from her husband. The fate does not harm me, and in such a wonderful morning I tried hard to catch the queen. Why the hell? Realizing that her glance and expression could make Famela angry, she took a deep breath to concentrate. Nervously rubbing her shoulders, she washed her way to the queen. "Good morning, Your Majesty." "Why did I say, Your Majesty? Calm down. All is well. Try it in your hands." The valleys were sleeping, and the heat was already approaching exposure. The queen said, "I sensed a miracle of newness. I'm flying, Revelin." The voice was dry and cold. "Now they won't let me live in peace. My marriage to the Duke of Elmondite will strengthen my status and expand my capabilities. Singingly, he boasts that he will lose power over me." The little one's hand trembled, and the queen made a furious look at her. "Conjectures make people crazy. The human world is based on a high level of figurative world. Fantasy is something that is missing in other creatures all over the earth. My brother! Let's do some harm to Bastiana, or he's saying something against me. This terrible dream will never end. Famela walked away without hesitating and said to those passing by in a creaky voice, Revelin, it is unknown how the situation will turn out in the future, and therefore it is necessary to take away what is already there. You have a flexible character. I would recommend that you get married so that you can break your temper. The eyes opened wide and all the muscles in the body tensed up due to lack of sleep. Vaughn stood unbroken, not dying. What did she say? Get married? Hands frantically fingered the cloth of the yak, lost in the valleys. Calm down! Try it in your hands! I felt a scream in my head. The queen, without hesitation, slowly walked further along the corridor. Having woken up from her sleep, the princess turned around sharply. Matinko, everything is not as it turned out for you. I sing to you. This is tyranny, and I am not worthy of any rank. Vaughn spoke slickly and Shvilavano. Don't try to change those things that are impossible to change, dear. More formally, tell us about your hundreds. Tim, especially since everyone is talking about your little squirrel in the greenhouse. The cooks had already sweetly tasted all the delicate moments of that night. The body began to tremble. Hands frantically crumpled the cloth. Does everyone know the details of that night? I wish I could watch us. I want this moment and Tristan. We've broken the dungeon. Heartless and soulless basics. There is no one in this world whom I can completely trust. Then the queen's voice sounded. Your time has come, my love. She took the remaining 2 words out of the blue. And the hour, as you know, is the only thing that cannot be bought for any kind of wealth. Price Yogo and Vicarista completely. I felt the laughter of Fameli's friends. Quiet, Vaughn said. The girls, trying to escape, covered their mouths with their hands. The timbre of the voice became tense. The women's monastery seizes your life. You will spend everything without taking anything away, telling you what you can achieve in religious enlightenment. This may be your only chance to achieve something. Please be silent over my words. I love you, darling.